Welcome to Holdback Rack Podcast. My name is Jessica Hare. I operate Hare Hollow Farm, and we breed Boas, balls, and select Colubrids.
Hi, I'm Jana King. I operate ASM Royal Tails, and I breed high-end ball pythons.
We want to share our journey navigating herpetoculture and are dedicated to promoting biohazard safety for all species. And we would love you to answer the question, what's in your Holdback Rack? Welcome to episode 7. This is the tough one, they say.
This is the tough one. Yeah, I'm feeling it. Are you feeling it?
Yeah, but fuck it. Here we are.
Here we are. We did it. Yeah, it's catching up with us, I think, a little bit.
That's all right. I don't know how you feel, but I do feel it's work. But I'm glad it's once a week now and not twice a week. So it's manageable.
Yeah. I'm still... This was the day I used to like catch up and stuff, and so I need to have some better time management and shuffle a few things to other days, and that's not my strongest suit. So I'm still working on that, but I'm glad we do it, and I want to keep doing it.
Good job. Episode 7.
We did it!
Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
A good turduncan? Yeah, we did. It was really low key. The kids didn't fight with cousins. I didn't throw things and storm out. It was good. It was good.
Good job. Did you feed any birds to snakes?
No. So apparently Rodent Pro is like 3 weeks behind on shipping.
Whoa, breaking news. Fuck.
Breaking news.
What?
So I ordered a while ago, and they still haven't even like processed my order.
All right. Well, Rodent Pro's crazy because they offer free shipping now on stuff that's already rock bottom prices anyway. So I don't know what that means.
I don't know either what that means.
A lot of people are, I guess, buying, and that's why they're delayed, and they're having other issues. But it sort of triggers me a little bit because I'm like,
it triggers me too because I'm like, what are you doing with that for 3 weeks? Like, is it safe?
And why is it free shipping? And it already costs 20% less than everyone else. Where did that animal come from? How freezer burn is it?
Yeah, I don't know. So I normally don't buy from them, but like they were the only ones I could find
with birdies
without too much effort on my part for the little birdies. So we'll see. I mean, if they come and they're disgusting, I tried to vary my king's diet.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't know. I was just 3 weeks is crazy of a delay.
It's insane. Oh, for sure. Especially when most people, it's like you order before. Like Friday at midnight, and they ship it out the next week.
Right. Because they do all their shipping on like 2 days, and that's it.
Yeah. So, whatever. We'll see if it ever comes.
I'm sure it'll come. It was just very interesting. All right, I fed birds on Thanksgiving, and it was
yay
joy all around.
They all had a happy Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm. All the big boas anyway, because I don't have any little chicks. I like have 150, 200 gram chicks, so I'd give it to all the big girls, the big booty girls, which they didn't even really need to eat this week. But I was just like, it's Thanksgiving, y'all gonna have a treat. Like,
I love that.
You could have a 400 gram wrap, and I'll give you a 150 gram chicken for a fun treat. And they're like, yes, please, thank you, give it to me.
Yeah, my kids were a little mad at me, but I was like, I'm cooking the turkey and the rolls and dessert. We had it at my mom's house, but I cooked half the meal and then we'd take it over there. And I was like, we are not feeding snakes today.
Yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine. Breaking news. Oh my God, there's new breaking news. I just got an email literally 10 minutes ago.
I haven't had a chance to like really look at it.
I'll read to you the juicy part.
Okay, go ahead.
Breaking news. The fall 2021 Morph Market newsletter. He just repeats what he's been doing that John's been doing that's good and was like great. And then he's like, oh, also, by the way, breaking news. We're going to expand the parameters of what Morph Market is to include all parts of the life cycle of having your animals. So it'll be a platform for all of it. It'll become a collection management software and a selling platform. So your little boy and girl snake will be in their collection management system, and you can automatically generate their ads.
Really?
Automatically generate their ads based on mommy and daddy's genetics, and showcase the parents beside the babies. So you can be like, these are mom and dad. Here's the baby.
Wow. So it's like a pedigree.
Yes,
system.
but like integrated into the system we all use to sell anyway, which is, there's a pedigree system in other ones, but it's not, if John can do it well, and you're like, I own mom and I own dad. Mom and dad come from these breeders. Here's all their babies. I'm keeping these ones. Because you can highlight non-for-sale animals as a separate related.
So you can show off your really good stuff that
you're like, I made this double visual. Here's all the one visual het the others, so you can prove that they're het the others because it's obvious because you made the double. You know, like, it's just like more evidence of what's going on.
Jerry support. I like it.
Yeah, and then he said he wants to include stuff that you can plan breeding projects based on the sort of data of speed of sale of items on Morph Market. So he'll give you the data for those morph combinations to be able to like interpret for yourself which pairings will be the most best, which has always been something we could have done, but nobody does because it's difficult. A lot of data, so you need to crunch a lot of things. And most people do not use Morph Market correctly, and sometimes they'll even delete their ads instead of posting them as sold.
It didn't used to be an option to delete. Isn't that a newer function?
It is a function now. You can completely delete it instead of mark it as sold.
I don't like that.
There's a big breeder who now appears to me to just delete. His old stuff was sold, but I haven't seen new stuff not be sold. I think he's just price protecting, but it makes it hard to figure out which ones are selling fast and at what price. But he's price protecting by like deleting instead of...
How is that price protecting?
Like if he sold a Desert Ghost female for $1,000 3 months ago, and then he sold one recently for $1,200, just a plain Desert Ghost female, he's not letting you know that the original price was $1,000. Because the prices just disappear unless you remember it.
Okay.
So you're like, oh, $1,200, I'll buy that. Or whatever.
I don't love that. I don't love that at all.
That you can delete ads?
Yes, that's bothered me for a while.
Yeah.
Because we also use Morph Market as like a reference point.
Right. So maybe, but there's sometimes a reason to delete an ad. Like you put it up as a female, it turns out it was a male, and now it's worth nothing. So like it was accidentally put up as a female, you checked, it's going to go get sold to show anyway. But you don't have a way to like, I think you can change the gender, but
you can, yeah. But like, right. There are reasons.
The price that it was not correct, and now it's like looking like, I don't know. Maybe that's a reason to change it. If there was like a clear error, or you put it up as the wrong morph, and obviously you can change that too. But do people go back and clean up their ads if they're incorrect, or they just delete them because they're embarrassed? I just thought that was very interesting because he's competing pretty directly with Husbandry Pro, because Husbandry Pro has like an automatic upload.
I thought Husbandry Pro uploaded pedigree information to Morph Market.
No, it just has pedigree information on it, and you can upload for sale animals automatically.
Okay.
But
that's what it is.
If he integrates some sort of system where if you buy into his stuff for his yearly price or whatever for the collection management strategy, you can put a picture of mommy and daddy. That's almost worth it, more money than anything else right away.
Sure.
I have the like breeder package for Husbandry Pro. I think it's $220, $230 a year. So it's not like
230 clams a year.
Yeah, it's not insanely expensive. It's fine. I need it. I don't not need it. I do need it.
Well, yeah, I probably need it too, and I have half the snakes you do.
Right. I have multiple species on multiple feeding intervals that change.
Yeah.
Yearly,
yeah,
and then like
and you feed babies and adults, so you have to feed multiple species. I mean, you're feeding every day, like showering midday.
I feed every day, different stuff. I don't necessarily pay attention to the sizes because I've memorized what size they're on right now. So, but I just need to be told these 40 to 60 animals need fed today. Because I can't remember anymore. If I had less species, it'd be easier. Because then you could be like, this rack of balls is fed every 7 days. And this one's a Tuesday rack. And this one's a Wednesday rack. Or whatever. But no. Now when colubrids are like 3 to 5 days of feeding, it's like, what? That's a random number. I have no idea.
That's what you feed them when they come up from brumation, right? The females? Do you feed the males that heavy?
No, they get too fat. I do a little bit for a while, then they start to get fat. Just to like remind them that it's spring.
Okay.
But then I'll dial them back once everybody's fully reminded that it's spring. But the females, I'll try to keep going. Sometimes I don't. If you really did it every 3 days, you'd probably overfeed the females too, like overshoot them. But this is what you shoot for. And then as you like, whoops, it's been 4 days, it's fine. Or 5 days, it's been fine. As the season goes on. And then,
mine were fed every 2 weeks prior to me getting them. So I do want to bulk them up. So a little bit of extra isn't bad for them because they didn't go into brumation with like a fattening up period.
Right. I have females that went in that are too fat to overdo corn snakes because I didn't know which ones were double clutching and which ones weren't double clutching. So I was feeding them.
So you're feeding them
double clutch, and then they did not double clutch. So they're actually like slightly too fat going down. So
and now you said that
I might feed those ones every 4 or 5 days or something.
Those ones are pretty consistent. So like if they don't double clutch that first season, you can pretty much, they probably won't.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So I'll know if these girls will after this season.
Right.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that. Sorry about the tangent.
No, we're all about tangents around here.
First time colubrid breeder.
Yeah, colubrids are still something I'm figuring out too. Because I had colubrids, but I never had a bunch, and I never had them at scale breeding. So now working on teasing out the minutia of all the different species and what they really want in life.
It's interesting to me that I thought when they were brumating that they would be less active. I thought they'd just be like slugs in the corner. But when I open their bin, they still like
look at you,
pop their heads up out of the substrate and like stick their tongue out at me and stuff. It's pretty cute.
They're still aware, but it's like slow motion tongue.
Yeah.
That's the best part. They're like,
I'm like, aha, you're not trying to eat me right now.
For the viewers at home, I am like slow motion sticking my tongue out. I forget that this is a audio only podcast.
Yeah, one day will be.
Well, I have a face for radio, so maybe not.
I was drinking my coffee.
Well,
warn a lady.
Better drink it more with less joking. Oh, I have noticed an insane uptake in social media. Have you noticed this?
Can you be more specific?
Notice, like, posts that I've posted have had a lot more likes just this week because of Thanksgiving, and people are off, I'm assuming.
Oh, I didn't take it as Thanksgiving. We're both about to hit that 1,500 follower threshold.
Is that magical
I thought it had
in some way.
I don't know. I think so. I feel like the higher you get, then the more Instagram pushes you in the like secret subroutine algorithm thing.
Oh, I don't think that. We should do we'll do an evergreen topic just about social media strategy and experiences.
Okay.
But
I don't have any experience.
It felt very like, it's Thanksgiving break week. Everyone's off college. Boom. Immediately. My first like ball python post to hit triple digit likes ever happened.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
I guess. Thank you. Wasn't responsible. I think that Thanksgiving did. It was very strange. I was like, okay. I guess I should like ball pythons more. I don't know.
I had a lot of views on older reels. I didn't post anything through Thanksgiving. Maybe I missed out, but a lot of my older reels, they must have ran them again because I saw a lot of likes for those.
Yeah, me too. I literally think it has something to do with Thanksgiving. Like, people are sitting around and then they're on their phone and the
avoiding eye contact with family.
Absolutely. And so they're just like, anything to do to distract myself. I didn't check if I'd gotten onto the Discover page or not, but I'm sure I did for some of them. Like, that's how that was happening. It wasn't just being pushed to feed. They were sitting on the Discover page for some amount of time. And they were just
You keep talking about the Discover page, and I have no idea what you're talking about.
The Discover page is when you click, like, the search, and you're in the browsing part of the search.
Okay.
You know how, like, you can search for a specific hashtag or person's name, but you can also just browse within that hashtag. That's the Discover page. You're discovering anything that you're not subscribed to that has that hashtag. Yes. So if you get put on the Discover page, you will get more likes longer through time, like for weeks after you post.
You have more visibility.
Yeah, because they're quote unquote pushing it to new people who aren't your followers. Your feed is primarily your followers.
Yes, that I knew.
Or people you follow. Every once in a while, they'll like drip in one that you're not following because it's like they think you might like it. But the Discover is full of things that you're not following. It doesn't matter. The minutia is almost irrelevant. But it was enough of an uptick that I was like, this is very noticeable. And I didn't notice this last year. So maybe like I'm of the size where I'm large enough to be a choice to be pushed to Discover now, when last year I was not.
Yeah, like I said, I think 1,500... Do you get a lot more, whatever that thing is, the Discover? But when you're under that, I think they don't care.
But I'm not at 1,500.
I know, but we're like close to that threshold, is what I mean. Like,
I think you might be guessing a little bit.
I'm totally guessing, but everything's a guess from Jana. Hot take.
Hot take. Hot potato. Hot take.
When is Morph Market launching the new?
It doesn't say. It's just like, these are our goals.
Entire life cycle breeding platform. I just scrolled and I never even made it that far. It's a big email.
Right. The top stuff we all know because it's stuff that's already happened. He's just reviewing. And then the bottom.
So he kind of snuck it into
his,
the bottom.
Future goals. And I'm like, that could be the new industry standard.
Oh, so these are like hypothetical goals. These aren't like, hey, I'm launching this.
Yeah, he's not ready.
These are like big dreams.
Right. But he's delivered on everything he's ever promised. Like, we finally got attachments within the messenger system.
Oh, there is? I missed that. Was that in there too?
Yeah, it was actually last week, but I skipped it because
it was really cumbersome to have to like dig through your email.
Right. Now you can actually like attach it like a normal person. So like, great.
No, they're doing a phenomenal job. Morph Market is an amazing contribution to the industry. Like the backbone, actually. Without it, I don't know that the industry would be as successful as it is. Like, it's amazing. And all the improvements are amazing. I don't doubt that if he promises that he's going to come up with this, that it's going to eventually come out. I just thought I thought you were saying he was announcing that it was coming out.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to oversell it. I've never heard anyone say that this was his secret ambition to be a full life cycle platform.
It's an awesome ambition. I really hope that he gets it done. I would love to have that software. Mm-hmm. I would love to be able to.
I enjoy Husbandry Pro, but I'm not married to anything. I don't care. Sorry, Husbandry Pro.
I need some kind of app in my life. I've reached the point. I used to do all paper, and I used to keep track of like every shed and every.
Oh Lord.
Oh, I know. It's so quaint and adorable. And
just like your like excessive use of weighing to me seems quaint and adorable also.
Yeah, hey, 18 months old here, so
all right, next year you'll be so grungy you'll be like, I'll never weigh anything again.
No, I just eyeball it.
Yeah, obviously. Looks breeding great. Look at those Fogels. I can tell just by like licking it or whatever.
That's right. I run it through my fingers and I know.
I've almost like gotten that way with the ultrasound already, where I'm like,
oh, I don't measure most of them,
or I don't even
because I can tell on the screen.
I'm just like, I don't need to ultrasound you. It's boring.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like because I don't have enough experience with ultrasounding, because I didn't have one last season, I feel like it makes me second guess what I'm visually seeing.
Okay, sure.
And it's giving me maybe like too much information, but I also would not have an ultrasound, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would still have an ultrasound. My thing is, like, I have 30 animals that are between 1,200 and 1,600 females. Should I be ultrasounding them every couple weeks when they're still kind of young, but they're the right size? No, it's a waste of my time. So I'm just like, I've started, this is a super tangent, but like, I guess this is kind of a collection update. I've just started pairing all of them, give them one lock. If they look follicle development-y, then I'll start checking them. Because every time I've checked them, I haven't gotten anything worth getting excited about, just like baseline follicle size. So I will waste 30 male lock equivalents on everyone. And then after that, I'm not going to do the labor of checking them unless they give me some sort of evidence to check them. Because they shouldn't really go this year anyway, because they're young.
Right. So with my 2020-ish females, I am ultrasounding them like every 6 weeks. If I see follicles, they get their first lock. If I see no follicles, I'm not wasting a lock on them.
Right. I have enough males that I feel okay about it. So maybe that's it, too.
I see most of my males have 5+ girls that they're going to right now. And so they, for the whole season, they have like 8 to 10 planned to go to them. And so the 2020s that have no follicles probably don't need a lock.
Probably not.
In the next few months when they're working hard as it is. And so that's why I'm not doing a lock. And if they're virgins and I change my mind about who I want to pair them to, then I haven't set myself up for failure.
Right.
That's what I'm doing. If they get to where they have follicles, even less than 10, they get their first lock. And then, I don't know, I'll probably check in 3 months, unless they're like flying out of the cage and bull wrapping and stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm doing, as usual. But, so having the ultrasound has sort of included a new sort of variable into the
Correct.
young. So
yes.
I thought it would be like, oh, no brainer, just check them every 6 weeks. But I find it somewhat onerous to check everyone every 6 weeks, so I do not. And I don't need to check the older females, right? Because they're going, because they're going. There they go. I don't care what size follicles you have. You're obviously going. So I'll check it in a little bit and make sure they hit 17 after their first lock. Right. You know what I mean? And like get the second one in. So I won't second lock them until I resize, but I don't need to check them just to see where they're at. Maybe I'm like the worst candidate for breeding ball pythons. Because I'm like,
no, that's what I did.
It's too much work.
All my girls that were like 6 weeks ago were at like 12-ish, 6 to 8 weeks ago.
These are mature females, right?
Mature females that are 2018 and older, most of who have had a clutch. They were at like 12 weeks and got like a September lock.
Right, so you can almost wait 8 weeks or more.
Yeah, that's what I did. And so those ones that were at 12, I only ultrasounded those. And anybody who had follicle growth, they get first priority in the next round of locks.
Right, that makes sense.
And so that's what I did. I didn't re-ultrasound 45 girls. I think I did 10 or 15. And if you're jumping out of the bin at me and acting crazy, you got an ultrasound just to check where you were. Right. So like I said, I think it was 10.
All right. I'm not sure. So the ultrasound to me feels like it's best used for girls who have no idea what's going on. Like,
I think that might end up being what I do as well, but I need the informational reference. Excuse me. The informational reference of what I'm seeing and what I thought was happening based on my 1 year of experience, which is nothing. I want to correlate that with what the ultrasound said. So I have this gigantic clown female who I was like, oh, she's going to ovulate any day now. But she took her meal last week. She refused this week. But the ultrasound says she's only at like 22, 23. But she also has like a million follicles in there, like more than I've ever seen. But she's literally like this big. She's so huge and swollen. And the ultrasound says that she's only that size. So I'm like, I really thought that literally like soon she was going to ovulate based on how she looked. But the ultrasound says different. So I'm going to keep ultrasounding probably too much this season. But I think what you said of the ones that you're like, what are you doing? Those are the ones that I will ultrasound in the future.
For me, it feels like it's best used on those females that you're pairing and they're plenty old enough, but they don't look like they're developing, and you just want to confirm that their follicles are not developing. And so you can roll back pairing them from once a month to like once every 4 months or something. Just to like check again and see if she wants to go a little bit later or a little bit later. That's 90% of where it was. Because I don't know if you listen, I don't know which podcast it was for mutation creation, but Austin was like, I'm going to go back to pairing once a month because I had less reabsorptions than pairing 3 times.
Really?
Yeah, it was
that must have been last week because I missed most of it.
Okay, I don't know. One of those months. He had more reabsorptions than he formerly had, but he had no other reason for why that would be than he just paired them less. And he doesn't run like quite as high of a number of females per male. So he's like, I'm just going to go back because it was fine before. I'll still use the ultrasound, but if they get like 1 extra lock per female, then maybe that's enough incentive. But obviously one person's 1 year does not a consensus make.
I feel nervous about just doing 3 locks. Is it like 10, 20, 30-ish is when you should do locks?
I don't know. Everyone has something different. But the one I was going on was like 10-ish, 17-ish, 27 to 30-ish. Because after 30, they're supposed to be done-ish. Although they can reabsorb right at 30.
So we've seen with the ultrasound. I'm going to ultrasound her probably in 2 weeks, just because I'm fascinated by what's happening. For those at home that don't know what I'm talking about, I have an inchy spider het pie girl who went all the way to 35 millimeters and then sat there for like 2 months. So I threw a male in with her because I was like, what's going on? She hasn't ovulated. She is acting really weird. She locked up right away with the male, and she hadn't eaten since like January. What's it been? Like, that's like a long time. Mm-hmm. And after I took him out, I was feeding, and she was like rubbing the front of her tub. So I got like a little hopper weed ASF, and she ate it. And so I was like, oh, maybe she just needed a little snack before she ovulated. But I continued to offer her food every week, and she was eating. And then she went into a shed, and I'm like, is that her pre-lay shed? And I've heard anecdotally that some females eat even when they're gravid. It's pretty rare. It's pretty rare, but it does happen. And so I was like, I don't know what she's doing. So I ultrasounded her after her shed, and she was at like 38 millimeters. So she had gone up. But like I said, every time it was feed day, she was like rubbing the front of her bin, acting hungry. And so I gave her a full meal. She normally eats mediums. So I gave her a small the first week, and then this week she took a medium. I was like, what are you doing? So she got ultrasounded over the weekend before I gave her a medium. And they're still like 30-something-ish, I can't remember, 32 millimeters long, but they're like really short, like a slug would be.
Maybe she's getting ready to slug out, and she did ovulate. Awesome.
I wonder if they will eat if they have slugs. So that's what I want to check, is to see if those are slugs and if she's going to lay them, or if that's what reabsorption looks like. I don't know. It's fascinating.
We'll see. We'll find out.
Intellectually, I'm enjoying it, but it really threw me for a loop because she's just been weird.
Did you buy anything on a Black Friday sale? Either a cage, a rack, or a snake? Or snakes. Or cages. Or racks.
I bought something over the weekend. I don't know if it was on Black Friday sale, but I think that counts.
I bought the male I had already bought before, and then I added a female. Oh, Lord.
How did you buy a male you already bought?
We talked about it on the last podcast. So I'd already bought it on Monday when we recorded.
Okay.
So it wasn't a Black Friday sale. I had just already bought it, right?
So you added another snake to the...
Yes. But I will not reveal this snake because because it hasn't come yet. All my snakes come this week. This is the last shipping week that's even possible, really.
Oh, I didn't. Oh, that's not true. I'm getting a snake this week, too.
Yeah. I mean, I've stopped shipping.
But it's interstate, though. It's not
within
going through
Washington.
Indy.
Oh,
Correct.
yeah. Then
it's
it
coming
won't.
from Spokane.
Sometimes they still go to Memphis, even if it's from that side of the state. Depends on how busy their trucks are.
Oh, I hope not. I hope they just fly it to Seattle.
Oh,
I didn't think about that.
If it gets on a plane, it's not going to go to Seattle. It's still going to Memphis.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see how that goes. I thought it was safe because it was in-state.
Oh, yeah. They don't care about you. Sorry. If it's like Bellingham to here, like a 2-hour drive, they'll drive it on a truck.
It's not. It's like 6 hours.
It'll go to Memphis or Indy.
Oh, no.
It's okay.
Don't go to Indy. I will be so crushed if they freeze my snake.
I don't think they'll freeze your snake, but it's pretty mild everywhere nowadays. Right, like the northern U.S. right now is quite mild.
Oh, good. Okay. That makes me feel better.
Every year, I do get a little sucked in where you're like,
yeah, it's hard.
I have FOMO feelings. I'm just like, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. But
I got sucked in pretty hard.
Yeah, but
I managed to pull myself out, but it was this is cheap. This is cheap. This is cheap. Like,
yeah, the hard part is like, of course there are always deals. Period, and then there are always deals now. I
was also rolling off I missed that mail. You know what I mean? So I know that intellectually, I know that there's always sales, and I know that there's always going to be snakes for sale. But rolling off of that, you missed it. There's no more for the whole season. You're now stuck waiting till next season. I don't know. It made it a little worse.
I know. Yeah, 100%. It's
like,
absolutely like a muscle to be like, I don't need to buy everything that's a good deal and that I want.
Correct.
I have to buy the stuff that's good for my collection, disease-free.
Yes.
Like, moves my collection forward, not just fits in good, but also like moves it forward in a big way. And it's
I know you and I argue about that. We argue about the move forward, whereas I just look like, oh, that fits, and you're like, that's not pushing you forward. You really stretch me, and I appreciate that.
I mean, I'm stretching myself. That sounds gross. This is the grossest conversation we've ever had, maybe. But if I'm all stretched out here, we'll just keep going with that analogy. Like, I have done the exact same thing everyone else has done, too, where you sort of get the collector's mentality, and you like the sets that you're collecting, and these are beautiful, and you think they work, and you're like, stop. You need to go next level from there, budget from that. Either buy the animal that's more powerful or buy the animal that's slightly more attractive and beautiful if it's a polygenic project, whatever it takes. But like, it needs to be next substantially level. Better to make. Once you have a collection, and every time you bring in a new animal, the whole collection's on the line because it might come with a rhinovirus or whatever.
Right.
Every risk you take has to be really worth it and good. So that's why how to start a ball python collection, our opinion of it, and then how to build a recessive project, which is basically how to start a ball python collection nowadays. Sorry, everyone else who has incomplete dominance still only.
Right. I would do things so much different if I had been given the sum total of what I have spent up front.
The only problem with that is like, you wouldn't have been given the sum total of what you've been spent to begin with. So
no, I kind of had to like prove that it.
Right. And most people are doing that to themselves. Like, let's just say they have a job.
Right.
They have to prove to themselves that it's worth spending the money and it's safe and they can make sales and do a good job. So that's why people titrate up. But once you know you've drank the Kool-Aid, you're feeling good.
I took the red pill.
Now, how do you proceed? And most people either get out of ball pythons altogether because it's too punishing, or they go at least middle to high end and they pick very specific projects that they want to refine and do fun stuff with. The Lucas Landon video from 3 weeks ago. It doesn't matter the composition of the adults, but in play was Black Pastel, Cypress, and Pied. He had a number of... Here's the notable piece of information. An insane amount of paradoxing on multiple animals, where like the normal pattern would bleed through, the normal black pastel het pied pattern would bleed through on the pied spots. I don't know why he had so many instances of it. Yeah, it is really gorgeous. Really cool looking, but I don't know why he had so many. It has to be a flaw, because paradoxing is never... But I just don't know why it happened so much. That was what was weird to me. Then he presents...
That could be what they look like, though. That combination in pied, that the pattern bleeds through and isn't overridden by the pied pattern.
On the known black pastel cypress, the paradoxing was not on that animal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. It was smooth saddled.
And the second to last animal, which was he still thought was cypress black pastel, was just low pattern, high white, also did not have paradoxing.
The third animal was really low white, which was surprising for a black pastel.
Right, but high paradox. So the paradox was giving it a color base because it was turning on whatever.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the fourth or fifth animal, the one before the like money shot, was a black pastel cypress high white, but you could not see paradox on it also. Remember that animal?
Okay.
It's just like a head
I do
and a
remember
tail.
that.
Yeah.
Yep. That's what you would expect it to look like. It's
yes.
like mostly white, which I'm not a fan of the high white, but
the final animal was like very cool looking. It was
absolutely.
It's almost pastel pied color palette looking on some of the splotches, like a very faded, but it still had stripes, unlike a pastel pied, and wasn't like blown out and fuzzy. So he believed it was just a black pastel cypress pied. And I was like, maybe it has honey in it, because we went through his animals, and some of his other cypress stock looks like it has honey in it. And that might explain how it looks so different than... Cypress pies don't look like anything.
Oh, most Belgians in pied go all white.
Mojave and Mystic and...
Oh, you're right. Okay, so the lower end.
Yeah, so the less strong ones. So that's why...
And honey,
to me, it looked like
that.
a Mojave black pastel pied, sort of.
But a different color.
But a different color. And then stripy.
I agree with you, yeah.
So that's why I was like, maybe that's a cypress honey black pastel. So if anybody wants to look at that video and decide if they think honey's in there, send me an email or a message.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not that my inexperience equals much. I absolutely saw that. I thought saw that it was that same.
And really weirdly transformative and cool looking. And then I'm like, why though? Why? It just didn't quite match the pairing to me.
See, and that makes me want to go buy that bongo cypress honey. That snake is haunting me.
No, Jana.
I know.
It's not even heifer recessive.
I know. There's no recessives, and I do not buy from that seller, that breeder. So, no, it's a no, but she just lingers, and I stare at her all the time.
Get honey cypress het pied female, and then go get make a bongo clown male, and then make clown bongo cypress pieds. Do it, but do it better, and do it with recessives separately.
Yeah.
That's my plan.
No more snakes. No more snakes this year. How many times have I said that?
Yeah, no more snakes.
No more snakes.
I'll go buy a cypress something or other, and then you can buy it from me 2 years from now. Double head.
We'll swap bongo and cypress babies.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
good plan.
Good plan. All right. The other thing that happened, and this is probably like the biggest news, was Miguel Garcia of AEP fame has released officially pictures of the stranger Pompey.
So I don't have to send you screenshots anymore.
Yeah, you also broke the Patreon code of trust.
I totally did. Dang it.
Do you have an opinion of the stranger Pompey?
I love it a lot.
I don't love it as much anymore.
I didn't think you would. I didn't think you would. That's funny. It's different than the Pompeii. If you're comparing it in the Pompeii project, I don't think that it takes Pompeii to like the next level, but I like it by itself. Does that make sense?
For like, the boys and girls at home, most of you probably know what a Pompeii looks like, but this looks like a Pompeii, just grittier and quite a bit darker.
very dark. It's
I actually
very beautiful.
think it doesn't have red stripe in it, and that's why it's darker. I think it's stranger yellow belly, spot nose, clown, no red stripe.
I'd buy that. I think
that's why it does look cool, but I don't think it looks
next level cool.
Yeah, so I'm what's missing
by
here?
Itself, if you're not sticking it next to a Pompeii, it's a phenomenal clown.
Yeah, it's great, but I'm so confused why it's so dark without color. It's almost desaturated compared to.
Right. So don't stick it next to a Pompeii or you'll be disappointed.
Like his mahogany Pompeii version is like the nicest of the adult Pompeiis to me. I don't know if you have an opinion.
I don't.
Okay. It is the best colored adult Pompeii. I don't know why. It just is. Even the original does not look as nice as the mahogany version.
Okay.
So if Stranger and Mahogany are the same, which they are not, but they're allelic, this one should have been the same color palette, but it's not.
So you think it missed on one of the genes?
It would have to miss on the one that enhances color, which would be red stripe. But it has all the pattern and busyness and whatever of all the other ones. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting how it had changed post-shed to be quite a bit darker animal.
Very dark, yes.
Which I like, but I'm just like, this was supposed to be the Pompeii. It's changed quite a lot. So maybe Stranger is not the best Pompeii. Maybe it's still Mahogany, even though the price difference.
Huge price difference. Hot take.
Hot take.
It's not Stranger, it's Mahogany. You have a personal investment in the Stranger and how it works with clowns. So you're disappointed? Or you just think that it isn't a Pompeii?
I have my doubts that it's a Pompeii, but I obviously can't look at it, and I'm sure he showed it to Justin, and I'm sure Justin knows what he's talking about. I'm just a little surprised it's so dark and colorless.
I know when he consulted Justin, it hadn't shed yet, so maybe he hasn't consulted him post-shed.
Right, and Justin, because it's a 4 incomplete dominant and clown, you can miss red stripe, because he thought the Dark Knight was a Pompeii with chocolate.
Okay.
But it was not. It was just spot nose chocolate.
Hot take. What she's trying to say is when there's 5 genes stacked in there and one of them's a new gene.
Or a subtle gene. Justin, like if you make if you make the chocolate Pompeii, I'm pretty sure Justin has made it and showed it. It looks much more like a Pompeii. The Dark Knight is just the allelic reaction. The Dark Knight might have yellow belly in it. Maybe I should double check that, but it doesn't have red stripe. So he thought red stripe was in it because it was so crazy, but it was crazy because it was allelic. So
got it. Okay. And
it's fine.
Things,
it's just like red stripe is subtle. Sometimes. Moving on. All right. I have like a weird laundry list of things that happen to me that has to do with allelic combos. And I'm going to read them to you, and you can interpret them as you will. Because I think in the past I have maybe misstated that the spider complex and the kind of wobbly friendship complex may be allelic. And that is not correct. Did I say that before?
The friendship complex?
The spider complex, and then like the mild wobbler complex, so chocolate.
No, you differentiated that they were by themselves.
Okay, so let me just review. In October, Frank Turner of Turner Ball Pythons bred a spot-nosed clown to a bongo cypress and produced a bongo cypress. So that means bongo and cypress are not allelic, which I think I have said that I thought that would be true. Okay, dead air. Let's keep going.
Sorry, I was repeating that to myself because it... Okay, go ahead.
So the female reproduced herself in the offspring.
Okay.
The spot nose doesn't matter because it didn't hit. The people who were like, maybe this isn't a cypress bongo, thought it was not because it almost looks like a regular bongo, which is still true. The cypress bongo and the bongo kind of look the same. To me.
So did it look like both to you?
Yeah, it did. But other people were like, I don't know. So then that means that not allelic cypress and bongo.
Okay, so which ones do we know have other allelic?
Hold on. I got more facts.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Over the summer, Peter Williams Reptiles had a video of 5 eggs where he paired a cypress spider to a normal produced 5 spiders and 1 cypress. No normals and no spider cypresses. So that means cypress is based on 5A spider complex, which would mean bongo, not in the spider complex, but maybe in the
spot nose
complex.
Okay.
In other news, long ago, 2 years ago, there's a Freedom Breeder video where he shows a bongo spider and says that he thinks that they're allelic because the bongo fixed all the spider weird stuff. But he didn't breed it. He just showed it. So that's why people were like, bongo might be allelic with spider. But if the other 2 pairings are true, then bongo, his supposition is incorrect. Bongo is either not in any complex or not in the spot nose complex.
Okay.
And then to double down, Justin has confirmed multiple times that blackhead and spot nose aren't allelic, which doubles down that the spot nose complex and all of the spider complex are 100% not allelic at all. If I've ever misconstrued that in any way, clearing it up now. So I almost think they should be called the minor wobblers and the major wobblers, because the major wobblers often have a lethal super and the minor wobblers never have a lethal super, but the super can wobble. But it's not a very attractive name. Somebody think
no, it's not.
So that is my update. I still don't know if a bongo cypress wobbles or a cypress spot nose wobbles a ton. It wobbles some, what the rate is. And I'll put all these videos in the show notes for people at home. We do have evidence that cypress and bongo are not allelic, and cypress is in the spider complex.
I'm so glad they're not allelic.
Why?
Yay!
Sometimes it's good. Keeps the animal more expensive because it's like you've made a recessive. You've turned a recessive out of it.
I'm not a lover of allelics.
Highway's calling. Ring, ring, ring. He wants to talk to you.
I know it, but I'm using my highways to move into super gravel.
Okay, but that's still a homozygote made from 2 animals. You just mean you're not a fan of things being allelic and not knowing what you're selling?
Correct. The ones that you can't tell apart.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Gravel yellow bellies were dumb. Real dumb.
It's super dumb. And then fire vanilla.
Yeah, and chocolate.
Super dumb.
Whatever. Yeah, incredibly dumb. But the fact
not
that
my
they're
favorite.
allelic is, and you can tell them apart, to me is powerful. Because if you have an inchy black pastel, you can make 2 flavors out of the same pairing.
Oh, yeah,
cool.
for sure.
And you're like, oh, cool. Take these females go this direction. These females go this direction. Put different recessives over them, and you'll have...
No, that's a great allelic combo. I'm talking about the ones that you have to label as or...
But I don't think bongo and cypress are like that, to me.
But also, I like what bongo and cypress look like together. And if they're allelic, then if you have to have one on each side instead of just using one parent, if that makes sense.
All right. I
in
like
the future,
how they look
I'd
together.
like to
I don't think it's insanely exciting or something. It's just okay.
Yeah, but I want to see what that looks like.
With the fact that there's honey in there, and you're getting seduced by the bright, beautiful colors.
I'm seduced. I want to see what it looks like in Cloud Pied. I want to see what it looks like in Kiki. I am seduced.
All right.
You are correct.
I sometimes just Gold Blush Mojave, where you're like, why is it so bright? It's crazy looking. The honey, when honey's in cypress, it looks 100% better than regular cypress.
Correct.
But then you have a bell complex in one side of your pairings.
I know.
Yeah.
It's a dang bell complex. Darn it!
Okay.
It's a thing that haunts me in my collection. Okay.
My collection update is that I have come to Jesus. Jesus told me that I don't have any calicos. They're fires. Or fire complex.
So your black pastel female is black pastel fire, not black pastel calico?
Yes. That's what Jesus told me.
That's a bummer.
100%. They still look nice.
They're absolutely phenomenally beautiful.
Yeah.
I love them. I would take 12.
Because nothing, no single gene calicos are born, but things that look just like fire were born. And a fire black pastel looks just like a calico black pastel if the black pastel is not high white. I think she was just mislabeled.
Okay.
Because Calico fights Black Pastel hard, and it makes it busy, but it rarely makes
really
white
hard
inside.
to tell. Right, right.
And it drags the tail. The Fire does the exact same thing. And since the two little granity things look like fires, basically, one's Fire and one's Fire Extreme.
That's a bummer. Do you have Calico elsewhere? You do, right?
No. That's why the males that I bought were important. The male and female I bought were important for this week.
Well, the ones you bought this week that you're not sharing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should I share? No, I'm not going to share. I want to test them and get them in. And I'll share next week. But that will be my source of Calico. Because I have none. I'm out of the project.
Okay. Well, hopefully come February, my cloud will be dropping a humongous clutch. So maybe we will have.
All right, I'll buy some. Or trade you some.
Okay.
Whatever.
Trades. Old school.
Yeah, I love trades when they like do a good job.
Yes.
For both people, because otherwise then you don't have to worry about anything, paying taxes on it, whatever. You're just like, oh, I have a snake and it fell into your hand, and then your snake fell into my bag. Weird.
That's right. Weird.
Oh, federal government, please don't listen. I love you. I pay all my taxes all the time.
Let's be real. No one's listening. But hey, in a year, so many people are going to be listening.
Hopefully. Yeah, I believe it. Maybe, especially if we, I don't know, show up at Tinley and start taking shots.
Yeah, oh, for sure. You gotta lay the foundation. You gotta have the time where nobody listens to get to the time where people listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're at episode 7. That means we're basically winning right now.
We're winning all the things. I'm so happy with it. Are you happy with it?
Yes. All right. Do you have a little collection update?
I think I have my first snake in prelay shed for the 2022 season.
Was she building all along, like all year, basically?
She was been breeding since last season.
Yeah. Snakes. I want to like clock them. Because I definitely had snakes do that where you're like, when did they go? I'll just start pairing them in October. 400 years later. they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so she was paired from October of last year, but she unfortunately had the Coral Glow Pied as her guy. So I think she wanted. How many
backup blocks did you finally?
She's had three with the new male.
They're probably all him then.
Oh, they better be. Anyway, she's humongous. She's 3,500 grams and looks like she's gonna explode too. The cloud is actually rivaling her in size, but I think she's going to drop a big litter. She's my African import dinker. And, I'm so excited to see her babies. So freaking excited. So I'm pretty sure I ultrasounded her a couple of days ago, and she was 36, 37, but she's no longer bull wrapping. She's on the hot side. She's in a perfect, beautiful coil. So I think I missed her ovulation, and then I'm just letting the ultrasound psych me out because I'm like, but I thought she had to be 40. I don't know. So she's acting like if I hadn't have ultrasounded her, I would have assumed that I missed her ovulation. And she's been on the hot side for about 3 weeks, and she's in shed right now. So I'm calling it prelay shed, but I could be a dumbass and be totally wrong.
I would call it a prelay shed.
Anyway, so I'm really, really, really excited because obviously it's been 100 years waiting for this girl.
4 years.
4 years later, and she's never had a clutch. So this is her first clutch.
What year is she?
She's a 2016.
Oh. Brings up a tangent that I have a desperate question for. How many years would you wait on a female to breed the first time?
Me?
Yeah.
If you don't drop a clutch by age 4, you get to go live with someone else.
What if it's a spot-nosed, yellow-bellied, red-striped clown, female?
Then you sell it for a butt ton of money to someone else who wants to wait around for that snake to drop a clutch.
You would
I don't know.
Sell a $10,000 snake that you bought that is now worth $40,000 or $30,000 as a 4-year-old.
Probably.
Yeah.
If you tried 2 seasons and if she never developed follicles and she never looked like she was gonna go, I don't know. I'm not about freeloaders. So
I mean, there are people who are like, I kept a female for 7 years.
I hear people say that. I was just over at Morph Mechanics picking up my double het TSK DG babies. He has a girl that he's like 4 seasons and she's never given him a clutch. And I'm like, dump that girl. She's a calico and I love calico. And my first
she might breed if she like just moves buildings like to a different, just is sold to someone.
He's going to sell her and that person's going to get a clutch like that.
Because there's something about her feelings about
environment.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, she's like 3,500 grams and she's never given him a clutch.
Tell him you'll buy it for $1.05.
$1.05. Sold.
Yeah, I have the same question because I have a Mystic who's a 2017. Didn't go last year. Doesn't look. I've ultrasounded her. Doesn't look like she wants to go this year. She's like just getting bigger. She's probably 2,500, 3,000 grams now. She locked a little bit last year, but never wanted to do anything. She's refusing locks now. Eats every 2 or 3 weeks, like she's just sort of in like maintenance mode. So I'm like, I'll give her 1 more year, but obviously she doesn't cost anything, so it'd be easy to sell her next year.
Right.
But what is the amount of time to wait? Because probably in the wild they're not breeding till 6 anyway, because they just can't get enough food.
Yeah, so the girl that I think is going right now, she is a 2016, but she was slow raised by somebody else. So I got her last year, 18 months ago, one of the first snakes that I got. And she was like just hitting 1,500 grams. And she had never been bred.
Yeah, so mine was bigger sooner. So could have gone. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely up for debate.
And then she got a dud male her whole first season. So, and she put on, it's been 18 months and she's now 3,500 grams.
All right.
Yeah, she's a freaking monster.
Mine got the GHI clown, which is the sexual
stud muffin.
Sexual being of the year.
He's like the Beta Kappa Pi president.
And the vice president.
Yeah.
And the treasurer. All in one. So like that's why I'm like, should I let her go now? I don't know. It's just
hard.
One of those
it's hard to decide.
I don't need the space per se, but I'm like, what's the management trajectory for a female that looks like? And is she pet only at that point? Because she hasn't bred for you, but she's still quite young. 4, 5, 6. That's still young.
I wouldn't say she was pet quality. I would say let someone else give her a try. Because, like you said, she could go to somebody else's house and just be like, "Hot dang, give me the boys!"
Right. That does happen.
Have you just bred her to the clown? Who else has she had?
Well, I backed her up with the banana, in case she just didn't like him, like personality.
But the banana didn't catch any clutches, so...
Right, but he did try. So, like, I know there's only 2 visual clowns I had, so both of them have seen her. She never even developed follicles. Ever.
So she doesn't have follicles at all?
No. Even though she's big. I mean, she has little, like, baby ones that don't count. But no.
No. But so she does have... You can visually see them.
Yes.
But she's not, like, hiding hemipenes up in there.
No, yeah, and she doesn't combat males, and she'll lock with males. She just doesn't decide to go ever, or even try to start to decide to go. A lot of my females that didn't go last year, a lot of them started, and I didn't have an ultrasound, and then you could tell they were giving up in whatever pairing they were in. It doesn't matter. She just might be a snake that I think does not breed at all and should be moved on next year anyway.
Yeah. So do you think that you'd be more willing to keep her if she had reabsorbed?
Yeah.
Or slugged out?
Yeah. Because that means she at least tried.
Interesting. Okay. I'm harsh.
If she never tries at all, there could be something physiologically wrong with her.
Right.
I mean,
like
human
she's
beings
not
are like rife with weird
infertility
stuff. Right.
Big
polyps on her ovaries, and she can never ovulate, so she never bothers, or she doesn't. Cycle
or her mom and dad, or her brother and sister,
or something. Yeah, or maybe she's a Partho baby. I guess she can't be because she's heterozygote.
Right.
But there are things that make animals not able to breed, and that's okay. We just have to decide when
when that point is.
Yeah. And I'm not, it's not clear to me that I would definitely disclose that she had never gone for me, but I would have to also disclose that she was paired and never gone for me. So she automatically is cheaper than a proven breeder 5-year-old if she's a never bred 5-year-old.
Right,
it's almost a pet price anyway, when she's only worth $200 or something stupid.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she would go as pet price, but especially if you took her to the show, she would sell off your table. Even with all that information, she would sell off your table in 5 minutes.
Okay, that's cool. Good information, Jana.
At like 300.
Yeah, I mean, she's a big snake, so even if you didn't want to breed her, you're like, I automatically have a big, nice snake and she only, right now, she only takes frozen thawed if I lay it in there and leave. She used to take live, but she won't take live anymore. So what kind of weird snake is that?
That's interesting. Yeah.
Won't take it off tongues either, but she will slowly...
I'd sell her at the show, but I feel like I'm a little ruthless about that kind of stuff.
I'll think about it, I guess. I don't need her because I have a Mystic Het Clown female who is building follicles, so I don't need to make Mystic GHI hets anymore.
Because you could make the real thing.
I can make the real thing this year. So she was just around to make hets, as usual.
Mystic is a great gene.
Yeah,
like if
that
she
look
was
nice
producing
with dark stuff, whatever. But if she's not going to produce again, then she should probably go. I keep ultrasounding her and be like, "What are you doing?" I did give her the banana pastel clown again, and they both were like, "Fuck you." They were not interested in even like a cursory like PP session, touchy. No, they both just like slithered to the opposite ends of the FP70 and they're like, fuck off. And I'm like, both of y'all are on restriction. Because she didn't want the GHI
both
clown.
Fired.
Yeah.
Both fired.
He did eat though, so he's coming back around. If I can get him to eat 2 more times, I'm taking him to the show. I'm probably going to sell him. Because my spot-nosed yellow belly crypto het is fucking... Somehow he like snuck up on me. He's already like 200 or 300 grams. So if he gets
he's a beauty.
200 or 300 more grams by the end of the year, he can pick up whatever the GHI clown wants to drop. That's fine. I don't give a fuck. Go ahead.
Well, the GHI clown doesn't necessarily need to hit as many as it did.
Yeah,
last season.
And he's very good right now. He's like doing great. He ate all last year consistently. So he grew the whole year. And I didn't start him till December last year, so he could definitely like rest. I chump paired with the banana and the regular clown for 10 pairings or something. Obviously, neither of those got anything. It was still him in the end anyway. So I think chump pairing is still a good idea, unless their follicles are huge.
As long as they have the same recessive genetic.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep doing that. This new male coming in is also the same recessive genetic. So if he's little, because he's a little baby, he could pick up the end of the summer clown pairings, technically.
Okay.
I don't know. It's all, I don't really care. But I don't know why some ball pythons like really let you down and you're like, what is going on? And some of them are just like monsters.
It's a little nerve-wracking because if somebody that's really expensive lets you down, like, what do you do?
I don't know. And
it makes you want to throw up.
You're buying some stuff that's expensive.
I am buying some stuff that's
if they end up acting like
nausea making
the icky 5 to 10% of ball pythons you get every once in a while, then what do you do? That's why
I can't even talk about it. It makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah. Somebody told me once, if there's a project you're really invested in, always keep a male and a backup male in case the peens get blown out or he gets sick or he just gets tired.
Yes, but if your male is $20,000, how do you keep a backup male for that?
You just hope for the best. So that's why, even though I don't need 2 black pastel het clown het ghost, basically males, I do not need that. A, they cost me nothing. B, it's an heir and a spare. If one of them goes, I have the other son, and they don't hurt my feelings that much to hold on to them for right now until I make the 2 visuals. And then I'll keep 2 males.
Right, absolutely. So I absolutely hope to keep a backup, but I will have to make it myself, if that makes sense. Like, I can't afford to buy.
Maybe protect the shit out of them. Only give them 4 girls at first.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to just baby them.
Yeah, because if he doesn't,
ridiculously.
If he gives up halfway through the year, then you have nothing, because you'll have to pair those with clowns or whatever.
I wouldn't. I would just hope
they were used stored sperm.
Yeah, because I don't have anything. I don't want to have like normals where I wouldn't know who the dad was, because then they wouldn't be the double het.
Right. Well, you just have to
I don't know what I would even do.
For the other visual, the visual that you backed up, possible het, whatever.
Correct. But I don't know. I think we'll see. I don't know. It's so nerve-wracking. It's so nerve-wracking when you get into that level.
Yeah. You'll have to gird your loins, because anything could happen. I don't know.
Well, like my pastel leopard highway male will lock with nothing.
Oh, no?
Nothing.
What year is he?
I want to say he's 2019. He might be 2020. He is producing sperm plugs. He's like 600 or 700 grams. Eats every week. He's only been at it for about a month, but he has locked with no one, and he like hides in the corner like a little bitch.
It might just need like another month or two, is all.
Yep, but I have females that are at like 18 that have had no locks.
Do you have anything backup male? He's an allelic combo, so you would know who the other parent would be.
Right, so I have a citrus pastel gravel or yellow belly that I don't know what he is, but he's also a yearling, so I don't necessarily want to back him up with that, because I won't be able to tell who the dad is.
That's tough.
And I won't necessarily prove out the gravel yellow belly dude. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep trying. I saved a shed from my stud DG male, so maybe I'll rub the females down with that.
19, who's only 600 grams?
No, let me look. I think he might be 2020. Oh, he's a 2020.
Okay.
This is his first season, I think. Yeah, it has to be his first season.
I guess for the kids at home, it is possible for a 1-year-old male to not breed its first season.
For sure, to not be ready.
You would need to at least keep your older male version for those at home. Not Jana, because her situation's different. Because she bought stuff. Until you're sure that the younger one does it. But a lot of times the younger ones do not seem to start for me until December anyway. No matter how big they are. Unless
that's good to know.
Internally produced, and they're my beautiful monsters. So
I'm just worried
I've been wanting to fuck for months. My internally produced males jizzing all over the place.
Right. You say they do it a lot younger. So my concern is that the girls that are sitting at 15, 18 are going to reabsorb if he doesn't get his crap together.
Yes. My tri-stripe has only just started to lock. He's a 2020. Came to me smaller than my males are. He's technically the right size. He makes plugs, but he wasn't excited about it until now. It's December.
So frustrating, because 2 of my other males are 2020s. My JKR Pied and my Sugar Het Clown, and they will lock with anything every freaking time.
Are they physically bigger than the other one? Your Pied's kind of small.
They're all about... I haven't weighed because someone told me it was stupid.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, bigger relative speaking.
No, they seem all about the same size. They're probably 700 grams. They eat a wean every week.
Leopard one more recent to your collection than the other two?
I want to say August. Around the same time as the sugar... It's just... The sugar het.
Dumb luck.
Just dumb luck. Yeah.
That's why, like, whatever you can do to, like, get your future male sooner in the year, I think has to be better, right? Because it gets to know your
for
room.
Sure.
That's why I'm definitely... Like, hurry, we need to get a backup thing for next year.
Right. He was definitely past the point I should have ordered him, but I needed a replacement for the one that was Nido positive.
Right.
So
you were in a weird situation.
It was really a weird situation. I thought that project was covered. And I could have gone the season with my gravel yellow belly, but I didn't feel like he was the same value male as the females he was going to.
No, he wasn't.
So
that's what I'm saying, like, maybe you should just, like, give them to a different male and then give that male's later going girls to him. I'm sure that's not the right gene makeup. Like, you're giving yellow bellies to the clown instead of giving them to the highway, but they gotta go.
Yeah.
And air is
I
fair.
gotta...
It's true for royalty, and it's true for high-end projects.
For breeding.
And that's why groups should be in like 8 to 10. So then each male has 4-ish. But you're really giving the best male 10. But if you need to give
But
each,
he has a backup.
Yeah.
Right.
And they could handle 4 each, which would be 4 logs a month, which is easy even without ultrasound. That's pretty common.
That's a plan.
Technique, but it's just hard to execute with disease testing and morph compatibility issues. You don't want to go buy an ivory. That would be unfortunate.
I have no desire to have a male ivory. If anything, I need a super grapple, but I really like the genes that he has, and he can make for me a super grapple Enchi leopard, which I would love to replace him with if he will lock with something.
So, today's main topic is Nidovirus. Before we really get started, I'd like to start with a primer about what I think we're going to talk about is. And that's frankly a mix of facts and opinions. So I read the same primary literature everyone else read, and other people have looked at the exact same information and come away with a completely different interpretation of how to proceed. So when we talk, you could be like, you're wrong. I don't think... That's not how I would do it. That's fine. That's fair. So you can go read the same papers again and reinterpret those papers to fit how you want to manage your collection. This isn't also substitution for the medical advice from a vet, nor is it a substitution for care from a vet if your animal is sick. So I do not play a vet on TV, and this is not veterinary medicine. If your snake has a problem of any kind, and you don't know what to do not listen to people on the internet. For the most part, what do we know?
Hot take. Take your sick animal to the vet.
Take it to the vet. The vet will often do due diligence that includes determining whether or not, given X symptoms, there is also a viral candidate, and that's what we're talking about. All right, that's all. So, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't a question sort of answer format, just to simplify it, because this is the easiest way to manage this kind of stuff, because it's a complicated topic. So that's why I set it up this way. Jana's going to read the question. I'm going to answer like a prepared statement, basically, and then we'll maybe talk about it a little bit.
What is Nidovirus, also known as Serpentovirus?
The original order is Nidovirus, which is called Nidoviruses generally. That's why the hobby vernacular version of the name is Nidovirus. Recently, it was reclassified under Serpentoviruses. So cool people who are in the know will call it Serpentoviruses due to the recent paper. I think it was a 2020 paper. But if you still call it Nidovirus, you're not wrong. You're just not precise. So it's okay to keep calling it Nidovirus. I've seen the Nidovirus jargon police be like, it's not what it is. So you lose points or something on the internet for not being precise enough. They do the same thing for arenavirus, which is technically reclassified as Repti-arenavirus family, Repti-arenaviridae. Police will come in, and I'm just like, we should just even figure out if we know what we're talking about first. Like, that people are aware it exists before we police the exact language that we just describe it as. Whew. Well, slow down, everybody. But
that was a lot. I glazed over just a little bit.
Well, people will come in and police the language instead of being like, let's just keep talking about it quick. Keep spreading.
Good job. We're talking about it.
Yeah. And I'm just like,
right.
Listen, no one read that paper. That's fine. And just saying Nido is easier than saying Serpentovirus. Because you can't say serpent as like the short version of it. Because that's what they are. They're snakes. So I just wanted to bring that up there, is if you see both versions of it out there, it's because it's been reclassified into its own subfamily. It's a enveloped virus. So that means it has a lipid bilayer around the outside of the virus that is highly susceptible to things that mess up lipid bilayers, like things that are highly polar, like Dawn dish soap. And it's in the same sort of order as the now infamous COVID-19. Coronaviruses are cousins, but it's a similar kind of virus. It infects the respiratory tracts of people, and the Serpentoviruses infect the respiratory tracts of reptiles. And there are other ones in their family that infect other classes of animals. So it's normally a disease of respiratory tracts.
But just for those of you that are following, COVID-19 did not come from Nido.
No, it did not. And nor can the COVID-19 or you can't give COVID-19 to snakes, and Nido can't be given to you.
Right.
They're too far apart now. Like, they're just like cousins.
For the lay person out there.
Yeah, so you can't cough on your snake and give it to it. But you could cough on a weasel and give it to a weasel. Usually viruses...
Or a monkey.
Yeah, usually viruses are like temperature dependent. So the viruses that live in ectotherms are different than the viruses that live in endotherms, because the proteins function best at a particular temperature. So cough away on your snake.
Cough away.
For now, until whatever. But so for the most part, we're protected from zoonotic disease transfer between reptiles. The only one that's like a big one that anybody ever even talks about is salmonella. I don't know why that one does better, but it still doesn't do that great. Most of the salmonella that actually infects people is the one that comes out of birds, which are endothermic. So they're operating at a higher temperature.
Because I feel like people talk more about salmonella from your reptile than worrying about if your reptile has Nido or Arena or whatever species-specific
people are
diseases.
Selfish, and they're only ever concerned about things that would affect themselves.
Affect me. Okay, that's fair.
The recent Lacey Act stuff has been colored with language about disease transfer. Like the new versions of the Lacey Act proposals have been like preventing the spread of potential infectious zoonotic diseases like COVID-19, scare you, COVID-19, COVID disease.
You could die.
Reptiles die. Humans. 2021 submission to this.
They're riding on the fear train.
Right. And if you told someone, a normal human, that there is a kind of coronavirus-like thing that lives in snakes, there would be no hobby. There'd be no hobby.
That's why I clarified, because as a layperson, I don't have a master's degree. And so some of the times you talk really complicated, and my takeaway is like the caveman takeaway of, wait, you said COVID-19 is like Nido. Is that going to get me? Like, I know that's what the layperson is thinking.
Right. And that's what PETA is
that's
trying
immediately
to convince your senator right now is true. That's
why I asked for clarification, because
and that's why
I know that's what someone's thinking.
Uniquely embarrassing and upsetting and stupid that the entire snake hobby will not come forward and be like, guess what? We're all tested to the gills. We have this fully under control. We contact trace snakes so hard. So why would you ever want to ban them for having a zoonotic disease? Because we already have.
We're eliminating it.
Yeah,
right.
We don't even need federal help. Thank you, federal government.
We got it.
Yeah,
we got it.
You know what pets are currently illegal because of infectious disease? Lots of different rodents. African soft furs are illegal in most states, not because they're not cute and fun. It's because they're the reservoir species for Lassa fever, which can jump into humans. That's why they're illegal. It's not because they're going to escape risk or whatever. And all those rats and prairie dogs are illegal because they're a reservoir for monkeypox.
Okay, interesting.
So pets can be made illegal because one person got a disease once, and before it became a pandemic, they're like, well, that's all illegal now. Even though reptile diseases are not a good candidate to jump to people because of the temperature differences, if the federal government decides it's a risk and they want to get some points to prevent the next pandemic, they will ban the shit out of this whole thing. That's why we need to get our ducks in a row right now. Test the shit out of everything you got, and let's start working on being like progressive with this instead of hiding and being regressive.
Taking care of it before they feel like they need to regulate it.
Yeah. Please, hurry.
Please hurry. Know your status, test your shit.
Yeah, because the Lacey Act language right now is just like that. To prevent zoonotic disease transfer, we're going to regulate cross-state transfer of whatever. Because they can get people scared and motivated.
So, with that in mind, how is Nidovirus transmitted?
So we don't 100% have absolute evidence of how it's transferred. but it's most likely, from the evidence we do have, transferred by large particulates. So like droplets of fluid, usually like coughed up or wheezed or dripped. This could be like on surfaces that is transferred between snakes or on items.
Mucus fluid, correct? That's not seminal fluid?
Yeah,
do we know that?
We don't know that.
Okay.
Since Nidovirus predominantly infects the lungs, most of it would be in the mouth and mucus from the lungs. That's an issue. But you can detect Nidovirus particles in the blood. So it's obviously traveling systemically. You can also detect it in the feces. We don't know if the ones that are detectable in the feces are infectious still or if they've died. They probably have died.
Okay.
But I would not go so far as to say that any fluid in the body is not infectious until we know for sure.
Okay.
I would assume that fluid is bad.
All fluid is bad. Got it.
And any touching is bad because a microscopic amount would be on the surface from a tiny amount of fluid, and you touch, and that's enough to transfer potentially. Because it's an envelope virus, it's quite weak, but it can probably survive just like COVID-19 can on a surface for weeks potentially, depending on humidity, temperature, and the amount of UV in the air. So that's why surfaces are important.
Those of us that don't have a master's degree, what is an envelope virus?
So an envelope virus has a lipid bilayer.
It's a lipid. Okay.
Around it, yeah. It just means there's like a little fat. Remember this from school? Those little fat layers.
Yeah, no, and that's how come Dawn dish soap works so well, is because it's for grease and fat. No, I got that part. Okay. I just didn't realize that was the same.
Exactly
the same thing.
We're doing great.
Okay.
Yeah. Some things that are deadly and scary, Dawn dish soap doesn't give a fuck. There's like not a problem. But Nido is like
hot take. Blue Dawn, everybody.
Yeah. Nido's kind of like an easy disease to have to manage around. You know, it's weak to all kinds of stuff. There's no vertical transmission, which we'll get into that later. I mean, this is an easy one. There are much harder ones. But if we can solve this
much harder ones.
If we can solve this one, we'll be on a good footing at that point.
What are the symptoms of Nidovirus?
So to start off with, snakes are incredibly stoic. You can have a snake with literally a hole through its body, and it seems like it's just existing.
Hey, I'm good today. Where's my rat?
So we do not know how they're feeling or suffering, and they don't make a lot of noise, and they don't bring attention to themselves, because that's not what a prey item does. It hides feelings of suffering, because it doesn't thrash around and go like, oh, I'm having a hard time. So we don't know how they're feeling when they're feeling bad, but not great. Start there. So a snake that is incredibly ill could look totally fine on the surface. Its lungs could be completely full
of fluid.
Yeah. And it's difficult to see from behavior. But here are some symptoms. They're usually generalized respiratory symptoms, but they can also be just symptoms of being unwell. So generalized respiratory symptoms are excess mucus, gasping and wheezing, coughing and sneezing the mucus like splatters of stuff in their cages. The mouth can look red and then go so far as to become stomatitis, so mouth rot, just from like the secondary bacterial infections just taking over from all the drooling and the compromised immune system. The stool composition will change. It'll become lighter, and that's probably just because they're swallowing mucus, which sounds gross. They don't feel
like a teething baby.
Yeah, they don't feel well, so they'll refuse to eat. They won't be as active potentially. They may regurge, part of like not feeling well. It might not be like the exactly cause. It's caused by the symptoms of the rest of the infection, but it's not necessarily like because it's doing something to the digestive tract. Obviously, death, including unexplained death, like no symptom, die. You're like, what is that? That can be from Nido also. Like you can have zero symptoms. You haven't noticed the like tissue changes in the snake, and it dies.
Oh, don't let people tell you that, random, unexplainable deaths, totally normal. You should investigate and do a post-mortem swab if you aren't testing your whole collection anyway. Even if you are,
do
a swab.
And then if you can afford it, do a full necropsy, because maybe she literally did just blow her heart out and she had a heart attack and died. Or he had a cancer.
But snake deaths should never just be like, oh, that really sucks. That just happens. And you move on. There's a reason why you should have a system in place if that happens in your collection.
Yeah. And I think people are both told not to worry about it and then told to over worry about it at the same time.
My general consensus when I had a snake pass away, who happened to pass away from Nidovirus, everybody was just like, oh, that sucks. It's okay, though. It happens to everybody. Don't worry about it. You were the only person that was like, red flag, red flag, red flag. Literally everyone else was just like, oh, sorry for your loss. That sucks. But don't worry about it. It's nothing you did wrong.
Right. It is nothing that you did wrong personally.
Well, in this case, it's because I wasn't testing. So
well,
now I've fixed that.
Most people aren't
it's fine.
Testing.
You can call me out. It's cool. Actually, I think she was the. I don't think I gave her Nidovirus. I think she came to me with Nidovirus. I think she was the Typhoid Mary. But still, if I had tested, I would have had more information and been more aware of the situation.
Right. You would have known to protect whoever she was pairing from her.
Correct.
At minimum.
So, right. So, I did have culpability in that situation. But don't let people just tell you, oh, just move on, it's fine. Like, you need to take steps and actions when there is a death to eliminate Nido and other things.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is, for symptoms, asymptomatic carriers is quite common in this disease. So I have a lot of people who are like, I've never seen a problem, thus there must not be a problem, or I don't need a test because XYZ, everybody's been fine, but those 5 that died randomly don't count. That's not how the disease works. They don't always...
I've never had a respiratory infection in any of my snakes, so I don't have Nidovirus.
Oh my god, it's just crazy. Or they get better to me sometimes. Okay, sure, but they do it every year, so is it better? Don't use a lack of symptoms to mean that you're somehow clear or something. It just means that your snakes are tolerating their variants well. So interpret that as you will.
I've had 2 incoming snakes, 100% healthy, feeding, looked beautiful, perfect ball pythons that were positive. And before I ask for a refund or return said snakes, I will usually send out a second test to confirm positive, even though any positive that I've gotten, the second tests have always still been positive. But I do that for the sellers. It makes them feel better. Perfectly healthy, no symptoms, never been sick, never had respiratory infections, totally fine snakes. Very high value snakes, over $1,000 each, and they have Nidovirus. And the people are like, but I've never had a respiratory infection. My collection is clean, and obviously it's not if you're sending out snakes with Nidovirus. So yeah, absolutely a healthy appearing snake. Like you said, they're stoic, so aren't necessarily healthy even if they look healthy.
Right. And we'll go in more why certain animals may never display symptoms later in the podcast. The incubation period, which is something people ask me a lot, is something we don't actually officially know on paper. No one has infected a snake and then tested it at 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, 20, and been like, okay, it's exact. We can detect it again as being infected in 23 days on average or whatever with this dose of virus. So I can't tell you. I just can tell you it's probably less than 3 months to be detectable, because that's sort of some of the information that we know. And it seems to spread fast enough that it's maybe weeks to months, depending on load and the immune system of the snake being infected. So if you had a snake that was maybe contaminated and you tested them for some years, you might be fairly certain that it's negative. and we'll go into this further, it's possible for the virus to hide. Just put a pin in that, because we'll go back to that one.
That's not scary at all.
So fun.
How do we test for Nidovirus?
So in the U.S., there are 3 ways that I know of to test for Nidovirus. The first one is through the reptile lab at University of Florida, which I guess is the most prestigious, but it is also A, the most expensive, and B, requires a vet to mediate your interaction. So you have to go to a vet, and they have to send the swabs to University of Florida for you. So you have both the vet expense and the cost of the test. What's good about University of Florida, though, is they can pair it with a necropsy. So you can send a whole carcass there. They can run a full panel of whatever and do histology on all the tissues all at the same time. If you wanted to have a one-shot test, you didn't know what you were looking for, and you were somebody randomly just died, I'm not sure what I'm doing. Take it to the vet, have the vet help you send it down, and get a full bazanga if you want to drop a K or so.
Whoa.
But you'd have a really good answer. There's obviously pros and cons to all these. Obviously, if we could have a full understanding of every snake's death exactly every time they die. But if you already have a particular disease in your collection, you don't need to be doing a full analysis because you know why they're dying. So University of Florida can do a comprehensive necropsy, but they can also do both qPCR and degenerate PCR. Degenerate PCR has more primers put into the mix, so they could potentially pick up more strains. But qPCR is specific, so it can pick up less of a particular strain that you want to get. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So sniper versus carpet bomb. But the carpet bomb might miss because it's not being precise. But a sniper might miss a strain that you don't even know that you're looking for, because you're only looking for these ones.
It's a little complicated, but I'm doing my best.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But I think a lot of people have criticisms of testing. They're like, well, the people who use it don't know what they're doing with it. They don't understand what they're testing. And maybe that's true, because a negative qPCR does not necessarily mean that snake has no other kinds of Nido than the ones the qPCR was designed for. Okay, that's true. But we'll get into it. But the qPCR from the labs that use qPCR is designed to pick the ones that are A, most common, and B, cause disease state. So, should every kind of Nido be tested for? Yes, maybe. I don't know. There are hundreds of variants, but the ones that we worry about are the ones that cause disease and the ones that are the most common.
And the ones that are killing snakes.
Yeah. So, I don't know. You can argue both ways. And maybe that's correct. And maybe we should be doing it both ways. I degenerate a couple times, and then a qPCR once you know what you're looking for.
No, that's all above my layperson head.
So besides University of Florida, there's Fishhead Labs. It's a non-vet mediated option. It is a at-home test kit where you order a swab and some pamphlet and some materials. They send it to you. You swab the snake's mouth yourself, and we'll go into how exactly to do that in 5 minutes. You mail it back to them, and they run degenerate PCR. It is in a stabilizer and not overnighted, so the shipping costs less because it's built into the cost of the stuff, but then because it's RNA, it has a degradation. So is the stabilizer always doing the best job? Maybe, I don't know. They also don't run it themselves. They outsource it to a different lab, University of Georgia. So it goes to a second location after you return it.
That's weird to me. Okay.
Right. It doesn't mean that it's bad. I'm just saying it's different. People
heard bad.
Well, people obviously
brain heard bad.
return positives from Fishhead Labs for stuff. But people also return negatives too. That should have been positive. But it's not a condemnation of the lab. It's a fact about testing.
Okay.
Okay.
Ooh. My brain is getting... Wow. Okay.
The other one
Let's
is
keep going.
Research Associates Laboratory vetdna.com, which is the one both Jana and I use the most or at all, basically.
It's the only one I've used.
Okay. The swabs are ordered from the company the same way, sent to you. You swab them. They have to be overnighted. They're less expensive per unit than fish head, but that's because they're qPCR. The primers that I'm understanding that he picked the most common and the most causing a disease state, and he picked regions of the RNA that are highly conserved in the virus. So, it's a good layperson analogy. If you wanted to have a criteria for what is a bird, one of the criteria would be feathers, right?
Right.
Not flies, because some of them fly and some of them don't fly. So having feathers is highly conserved to birds. All birds still have it. It's a trait that hasn't been evolved away. So when you pick a primer set, you can pick part of the RNA of the virus that is so important to the virus functioning that it never mutates. Because if it does mutate, the virus doesn't die because it's not alive, but it doesn't do a good job infecting cells anymore. And so that variant will die out.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if you pick parts of that family that are both specific to that family, but also highly conserved, even though you're only targeting technically 7 qPCRs, you should be picking up most of the family because you're picking a region to replicate that is common throughout the family. So I choose RAL mostly because I get a response back right away. So I can make decisions right away about like a new intake.
Do you hang on to it for 90 days or are you sending it back? What? A quick decision. Isn't that the decision you're making?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like in the terms of a commercial transaction, I can't normally ask someone who'd never tested before to wait 2 weeks for a fish head labs result to come back before I can return it.
Yeah, they're not going to let you.
40 fortnights for a University of Florida result to come back. Because you're like, oh,
how do they preserve the test so that they can do it?
They still overnight it, but you have to like get a vet appointment in the pandemic when there are no vet appointments hardly ever. There's like 3 weeks out for vets around here for snakes.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Find a vet who will do it, pay them, and then it gets overnighted, and then you get results emailed back to the vet, who then emails it to you if he's in the office. You know, it's like one of those. So it's like...
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's why it takes so long. Okay. Yeah.
They don't use a preservative either, but...
It's the other stuff.
When are you going to find out? Right. Next year.
Next year. Way too long for someone to trust that result.
Yes, because you have potentially cross-contaminated 5 ways to Sunday, and...
Correct.
Fuck you.
It's now your problem.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Canadians can ship swabs ordered from the U.S. back to the U.S. No excuse, Canadians. No excuse. Europeans have their own internal labs. Labo can... I guess I don't know officially that... Because I've talked about them in the context of Arena. I'm sure they can do Nido if they don't already have the primers. The primers are like... The sequences are public knowledge. They just have to pick primers.
Yeah, nobody's hoarding that knowledge.
Yeah. So, no excuses. Everyone can test. No more crying. No more crying.
So if you're Canadian, contact Chad at Raoul Labs, and he'll help you figure out how to ship your swabs without paying CIDs. You can do it. We got this.
Yeah.
It's okay.
There's no...
It is possible.
Yeah. I can understand if you're just like, I'm not ready to go there, or I have a large collection or whatever, but start going there because there's no reason to wait. If your stuff's expensive and you're shipping to the US anyway, then you're used to like paying big bucks to do stuff. So let's pay big bucks to test them. All right. Next. Jana, how do you test with RAL?
Well, you have to go on their website first and order the swabs. And the very first question I always get asked when I'm telling people about Nido is, oh, but they're really expensive, aren't they? Which I think fish head kits are expensive.
I mean, they're $65. So even then, it's still not...
In relative with to a $2,000 to $3,000 snake.
So even if you like, fuck RAL, I hate them. Go use fish head. Fuck you. Just do it. What's wrong with you?
So if you buy the 100 pack, it's $85. So it's less than $1 a swab. If you don't buy the big pack, it's about $2 a swab, which is nothing. And then you pick a day when you can overnight the swabs. That's not going to hit on a weekend because they are not open during the weekends. You can put an ice pack in. I never do.
I don't
Do
either.
you ever ice pack?
Mostly because it's quite cool here, even in the summer, overnights.
Yeah.
I guess if I lived in Texas, I would probably drive it there. But if I lived in, like, the other side of Texas, you know what I mean?
Where it's real hot, yeah.
Yeah.
It comes with a form, or you can print the form from their site. There's a bunch of general parts that you have to fill out, like who you are, what species are you doing, what fluid or feces are you swabbing, is the animal alive or dead, and you just fill all that out. And if you want to do multiple, it's one swab per snake, but you can do as many swabs and snakes in one order as you want. You just flip the sheet over and you number them, and then you correspondingly number the swabs to match the snake.
Chad told me sometime that somebody sent him like 100 swabs and thought it was going to be just $25 for...
Oh, no.
So they got a charge on their card, and they're like, what? So just for everyone at home, it's $25...
Each test.
Each test for Nido. And if you want the Boa panel, it's $60, but it's not $25, and they can run it an infinite number of times because they ran it once. It's not like that.
No, each swab test snake gets a $25 charge. So you're at about $27 per test, counting the price of the swab.
Other people will tell you also to, like, get one swab and swab multiple snakes to, like, get a sample.
Never, ever do that.
That sounds like a way to spread Nido, you motherfuckers.
Oh, my God. Can you believe that? Oh, yeah. If you do that and you have a snake with Nido, now all the snakes you swabbed after are exposed.
I know, it was crazy that I've read that on the internet. I was like, stop it.
How would you know?
They just want to, like, see if their collection is tainted and, like, do a survey, but I'm like, that is a terrible way to save money.
Ever. Yeah, that's a way to collapse your whole collection.
Yeah.
Just FYI. One swab per animal. And in order to avoid cross-contamination, you even need to change your gloves between swabbing. And you want to... What I do is I put on gloves, I alcohol the gloves, I swab the animal, I alcohol the gloves, I remove the gloves, sanitize my hands, and then I repeat that process.
Yeah, you have to be careful about, like, where... Because, you know, your dirty hand is holding the exterior of the tube with the gloves, right? So, like, you almost have to, like, either sanitize the outside of the tube once you're done, or I usually have two bags, like a touched bag and then, like, a not touched bag.
I have the bag that's going to RAL, and I put that in before I remove my gloves.
It's something of a procedure. If you're...
I've already labeled all the swabs before I start the process. Otherwise, you're right, it's a cross-contamination, and it gets sketchy. So, yeah, once I have put the swab back in, it comes in the little container, for those of you who've never seen them, unless it's a baby one. So all of mine are labeled beforehand. They're numbered. I just, for my own reference, because all of my snakes have names, you don't need to do this. You just need the number and then the corresponding information on the back of your sheet. For me, it's easier if I put the number and then the name of the snake.
They definitely ask you not to do that, though, Jana.
Don't do that.
The instructions say, please don't put anything else on it except for the number. It's hard to read.
So they ignore it, but I use it.
Yeah, I'm sure they would now, especially with the new labels that have more lines.
Yeah, there's all that room for them. And I put the big number on the tip of the swab, and then I write the snake name and number on the...
Like on the top?
Tube.
So the number to do that. I guess it's okay because you're fine. But if you read the instructions,
I've asked him and he said it was fine.
Yeah.
He said it was fine.
Yeah,
that's what I do so that I am referencing who I'm swabbing and making, like, it's a double check for me.
Yes.
If that makes sense. So it's like a fail safe to make sure that I'm swabbing the right person, and that's who I'm testing for.
Right. Well, I guess in that case, since you have a number and the whatever, it's more fine. Like, the instructions are like, don't just jam in, the full information of the snake.
No, I don't do that. I just do a number and a name.
You're doing. They would just want a number.
And then,
so if you do a number and then, like, whatever, a little note to yourself.
Chicken scratch note to myself that they can ignore.
Right.
I'm sure they don't even look at it. So I do their system, but I also add a double check for myself it gives me peace of mind, and they have never yelled at me. They said that it was fine. So anyway, let's just go over that one more time. You sanitize your hands. You have your little tube all ready to go before you sanitize your hands. Put your gloves on. I like to sanitize my gloves just to be safe, and then I take out the swab, and you can either use a tongue depressor to open their mouth. I just use the tip of the swab.
Me too.
And you hold behind their head. You may need someone to assist you. I have found if you are messing with their mouth, they will coil your arm. Mm-hmm. And you can like press them up against your chest and then swab their mouth. If you're pressing them up against your chest, there's possibility of cross-contamination. So you may or may not want to do that. That's just what I've found works for me. So then you put the swab in the container, put your container in the bag that's going to Rao Labs. I usually put my sheet in after I'm all done because I use that to reference as well. But you don't ever take those swabs out again or you're cross-contaminated. So they go into the bag, then you sanitize, take off your gloves, and you repeat the process for the next snake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I try not to let them touch me.
You try not to let them touch you. That's fair.
And if they touch me, I change my clothes. For a ball python, for Nidovirus, most of the viral particles are probably on their face and the saliva. So it probably doesn't matter as much. For a boa, I'm just grossed out by boas. So I bring someone in, they wear gloves, we hold the snake down. We don't let it touch us. We sanitize if they touch us. That's just.
And then do you sanitize the surface that they were on?
Usually I try to keep them in their cage.
Oh, okay.
So that they don't have to come out and touch something. But yes, if I was using a surface or a hook or something. Boas is a real procedure because it's big snakes and they want to fucking fight you good. Sometimes they're good. Like they'll just sit there and they'll like basically let you just hold them and open their mouth and they won't do it if they're like good snakes. But some of the bad snakes are like
so when you're doing when you're doing a FedEx swab in the car day of,
I'm by myself.
In a bag. They're in a snake bag and you can just like pop their little head out, leave their body in the snake bag. You're gloved up, you swab, and then you drop them back in.
Swab them in FedEx parking lot, and then FedEx the swab. And
for new snakes.
Usually you're only getting maybe one or two at that point, so the amount of cross-contamination is super low. So you can like hold them against your chest or this whatever, because it's from the same person anyway at that point, probably.
Right.
If anybody asks me, and it's not your main collection, and it's coming in new, swab in the parking lot. Even if
that's what I do.
Gonna post office it, you can still swab in the parking lot and post office it. Because there's no way your car gave your snake Nido, unless your car is really weird. I don't know. You know what I mean? Or like, you don't.
Unless your snakes are licking your car.
Own personal snakes in your car. Also, so where's the source of cross contamination? And you can literally live stream it. Fuck them. Like, there's a lot of issues with people accusing people of introducing infection to the snake.
I have had that happen to me.
Even just a couple days after. Not good. So if you do it literally the second you get the snake, you can't introduce anything. So you're just covering your bases by doing it as soon as possible.
Do you want to reiterate the exact areas of the mouth that you're supposed to swab?
Oh, yeah, sure. So the parts of the snakes inside that you're interested in, for many of the viral panels that use a swab, are mostly the choanal slit, which is the part that the snake sticks its tongue into in the top of its mouth to smell with. That kind of has like a beeline into the sinuses and has all kinds of potential. That's why that one works. So it's like in the center of the top of the mouth, you'll see a little slit. So I do around 20 seconds. It could be a little more, a little less. I'll focus a lot of time there. I'm talking like 15 scrubs. Then I'm like, okay, cool. Let's calm down. I will try to get them to open their glottis. Sometimes they keep their glottis closed because they're like, fuck you, I'm fighting. So they'll close it. I will wait for them to sort of pop it open. And then I'll try to get to like the tip of the glottis because that would get like a good sample of their lung. And then I try to just get a general scrub around this pooled saliva at the bottom of their mouth. That's exactly what I do. Sampling routine. Yeah. That's what they tell you to do, basically. Let me tell you, I've accidentally broken teeth on, like, wild ones. That's okay. A little bit of blood on is okay. Like on the swab, because there'll be, like, a tiny little bit of blood.
I have actually called you and asked you, oh, no, there's blood on one.
It's okay. Blood is actually, like, an inhibitor of the process, but they put a stuff in it to, like, get rid of it. Also, like, a tiny little bit of substrate, like, if you're using, like, reptile primed, like, small stuff, if it's, like, nearby, and just, that's okay, too. Or, like, cocoa dust gets on it. They have processes to wash that off. So don't like,
try to, like, flick it off or throw it away.
Yeah, don't touch it with anything else. Yeah. It's not ideal, but it's fine. I wouldn't redo it. You're doing great.
And it's better than you touching it to try to remove it.
Right.
So send it in as is. Don't touch it.
Oh, that's good. If you do something crazy, like drop it on the floor, throw it away then. Like, and it rolls away. I actually keep a spare in my car just in case I drop it physically in my car, like from my hand. So I'll bring 2 with me to swab the 2 snakes I just got in, but I have a spare. Just always in my car for these. This is how, like, routine it is now. There's an emergency extra swab at any time. I can swab you. That's all. And you overnight it in. If you overnight it at FedEx, you'll get the results by email the next day. If you overnight it by USPS, because USPS delivers way late now, you get it 2 days later. But the swab is okay. They just run it. They just don't read the results till later. So they can't generate your report till the second day.
And then how much is it FedEx?
FedEx from here to Texas is $56 now.
$56 per group, because you can send a whole group. And the USPS, so if you're doing it for, like, your own personal use and you're not trying to get results back for a seller, is $29.
Is it $29 now? It was $26. $35.
It went up. All their prices went up.
This is crazy. This is like back to current events where, like, all the freight prices are insane right now. All the FedEx prices are insane right now. Because it used to be $52 to overnight to FedEx at the exact same location for the same size package. It's gone up.
Yep.
I just want to fight the whole world right now. I need to buy racks so bad. I'm like, I can't. Feel stressed.
Oh my gosh. I was trying to buy 4 racks, and the total price for the racks was like $2,200. Shipping was $1,400.
It's crazy. It's so crazy.
No, thank you. I will stick together some PVC with some screws and call it good.
Honest to God, even though I don't like vision racks, I'm strongly considering, like, a vision rack as, like, a temporary holdover rack until, like, next summer or something. Because they do suck, but they are a cage with heat, and I heat that room anyway. So even though I don't like them,
they suck so bad, and they take up so much extra room because of the, like, thick shelving and the thick poles. And but I was gonna sell mine, and I'm like, I gotta hold on to it for now.
If you sell your baby visions, I'll probably buy it for hognoses or something.
Yeah, I mean, if I get in what I need, then yeah, it's all yours. But but as backup, man, you can't go anywhere yet. I hate it so much. It would be perfect for hognose. I may turn it into king snakes.
Yeah.
Because you can put a 70 on the bottom. Mm-hmm. Like, the bottom 3 could be 70s, and they just come out the other way, and then the top ones will have the
only problem with that
18s.
Is your heat cable has to, like, do weird things. Because the 70s...
So the heat cable comes with its 2 pieces. So you could take one and run it in the 70s area and have it on its own thermostat. And then the second piece you can run through your babies. But you have to go buy, like, the
50-footer or something, because you'd have 150 feet for just 3 rows. I mean, this is not relevant.
Mine are 50. I think mine are 50 feet ones.
All right. Well, you'll figure it out.
Anyway, that might be the plan, is that they might get their own thing.
Colubrid people reliably run vision racks because, like, they're wide open to the air. Like, the heat doesn't fucking...
Right.
The temperature doesn't matter. If your
My poor little ball python babies get so dried out.
Yeah. So I had better luck running bigger ball pythons because you could have, like, deeper layers of cocoa in the bigger containers. You know what I mean? So they could, like, hunker down in, like, the higher humidity sections.
Yeah, right.
I still end up giving it to colubrids anyway because I'm fucking tired of it. Even in the winter when you're running a humidifier, it doesn't hold enough humidity for any animal that needs high humidity. Boas do okay in them, though. I guess the point is the shipping is free. The shipping is free.
What?
For the small size, it's not the Boa tub size, but everything FB70 or smaller.
So dang it! I hate you right now.
I calculated it. It's $46 for a Vision 35 per tub, like a full rack of 35s, and it's $78 or something with shipping for an ARS 5540. So it's almost half-ish the price per bin.
Don't tell me that.
And you don't have to wait 8 weeks because they're all pretty much made, and the shipping is included. So like, I prefer ARS, but this was supposed to be my like the 2020 babies that need like a juvie size tub. Sorry, not 2020. 2021s. The 2020s have adult tubs. The 2021s that are going to need bigger than a V18. Where do they go in? They need an ARS, but fuck ARS right now with the freight costs. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear from Sea Serpents to see what their freight costs are, but I'm sure it's going to be just as outrageous as everybody else.
Well, they have their flat rate is on there.
Is it?
For like a big one?
Yeah. The 18 tall?
No, it's like $70. It's on there. It's small enough that it fits in. You mean the one with it's 8 levels high with potentially 3? Or are you talking about the big one?
The really big one that's like 18 tall.
Why wouldn't you just buy 2 small ones? Then they can ship not freight for a known amount of money.
That is a very good question. I will look into that post-show. We've gone on a really bad tangent.
Whatever, it doesn't matter.
You made me to move that. I don't know.
It's actually kind of good content.
It is good content. Okay. So we are at why should you test?
Even if it's not perfectly infallible, you're preventing catastrophic disease and death. So like it seems pretty obvious why you should test. And a lot of people are, for some reason, this still is like a non-starter. Like it's too much money, whatever. But how much money is in your collection? How much is the test?
And on a personal note, that Typhoid Mary that passed away in my collection had seen my favorite snake. And he has Nido. And I'm going to have to euthanize him. Right now, he is completely isolated from my collection. He has his own rack. And I just haven't had the heart to do it. And I thought I was just like, oh, I'm going to keep a contained, just a little Nido colony. And it's just, I don't feel like it's safe, especially with the high dollar value that my collection has gotten. It's just not safe to have it around anywhere, even if it's completely separate. But it's heart-wrenching because that's my fault. If I had tested incoming snakes and not had that in a breeding group, I would not have infected my favorite snake. But now my favorite snake is infected, and because of the safety of the rest of the colony and because long-term quality of life outlooks based on necropsy has shown that they do, like, their lungs are scarring and other things are happening inside their body as they, like, basically slowly degrade and die, even if they're not symptomatic. I am going to have to euthanize him, and that's heartbreaking because it was completely preventable.
Sorry.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. Disease testing is not a substitute for all of the other normal biohazard safety measures that we've all come to love and maybe ignore sometimes for various reasons. We're promoting testing not in lieu of those, but in addition.
Absolutely, in addition. Even if you don't test now and you're thinking about testing, the biohazard safety measures should always be happening in your collection. Even if you test and everybody's negative, these are measures that should be a constant in your practice, your daily practice.
Right, because you don't know what you can't test for. So what else fun stuff is there? So testing is not a panacea also.
So what are the good biohazard safety measures that everybody should be doing on a daily, weekly basis?
I like isolation of cohorts. So if it's a certain age class or a certain breeding group or the active breeders versus the breeders that were grown up in your colony or whatever, just isolate different groups. Don't cross-contaminate them. Don't let them don't touch them and then work the other ones, or work from the least contaminated potential to the most contaminated potential, or do any measure that you could institute within your collection right now to reduce the amount of touching. Do not, please, blessed Jesus, use a shared cleaning tub where every animal goes into the tub and you clean their cage and then put them back.
So many people do that.
That's so common.
I used to when I 18 months ago I did that, but now that I know about Nidavirus, I hear people do that and I just want to throw up because it's so scary what they're doing and they don't even realize it.
All those little babies. Yucky.
Yeah. Don't do that, please, unless you're literally Dawn dish soap, F10, the whole thing in between each one. Why is it necessary? Just clean their
especially for ball pythons where you move out of the way. I'm going to spot clean and then chlorine this little section where you pooped on the wall and then...
Good to go.
If you're going to do a deep clean, you have to treat it appropriately. Whatever. Have a quarantine rack that is only used to move stuff into it and move it back when you go to do a deep clean.
Or have spare tubs and have those tubs be clean. And that snake moves into its new tub and then you fully clean, sanitize the whole 9 yards, those next tubs. But no, don't put everybody in your sterilite bin. Just don't do it, okay?
Yeah, it's really embarrassing, honestly. And big name people do it too. Cute pictures on Instagram of mommy and the baby. You're grossing me out. I'm not buying from you. It's not cute. It's disgusting.
So what I do to isolate is I have a feed night for my babies, I have a feed night for my juveniles, and then I have a feed night for my breeding adults. And then I have a completely different day and materials for my Nido rack. They have all their own materials that get sanitized between every use. I don't interact with any other snakes on those days. They get touched once a week and they get fresh water. They're been clean, fed, whatever they need on that day. And then I will take my clothes off and put them directly into the washing machine. And then I take a shower. And then I don't interact with any snakes that day at all. And their tools are with their rack and that's it. You should pretend every snake that you're interacting with has Nido.
Yeah, and that can become debilitating also, but
you just keep that in mind that that's how safe you need to be practicing.
Yes.
So chucking, you wouldn't chuck your $1,000 female that you're growing up who's the apple of your eye into a bin that you just chucked a Nido positive snake into. Right. You would never do that knowingly. So don't do it unknowingly.
Right.
Or just pretend that's the
every
situation.
Snake is a Craigslist snake that you barely know anything about.
Correct.
Because you don't really know anything about anything until you've started to know them
I have
better.
to tell myself all of these snakes are positive in order for me to remember the level of biosafety that I need to have.
Right.
Because that helps me keep it in perspective. Because it's a lot easier, to chuck every snake into that bin and work quickly. But you have to remember, you don't want to be responsible for catastrophic things happening in your own collection. It just really sucks from a business standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, from a hobby standpoint. It sucks. Don't do it.
Right. And the good lessons you learn about taking care of things correctly to prevent Nido save you from the things that are literally even worse. Not a little bit of RI and some of them die. All of them die right away, very quickly. Preventing Nido also prevents all the other fun ones too. So it's a good habit to be in general. Nido is having its day in the sun. There's obviously incredibly even worser ones. So
really scary ones.
Yeah.
Catastrophic collapse. Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Ugh. It keeps me up at night.
So that being said, some of your snakes do touch each other when they breed. So those groups of animals, you could save some mental effort and feeders. If you're going to go feed a live to a female and she refuses, you can feed it to the female within the same breeding group because she's already been cross-contaminated with that male, if you wanted to. So a lot of times for lives, I just take them out and I'll put them back in the rat room. I'll let them just grow a couple more weeks because then they're not contaminated because they're just rats. They can't get infected. Your rats cannot get infected with Nido. They can just have it on their surfaces. So the rat is not ruined if it's still alive. I don't refeed frozen thawed though. It's because
I was going to say, I thought that was a big deal that you couldn't. I do
Within
feed
your-
within breed.
within your
I
breeding
do feed
group.
within breed group, but I don't, like, I wouldn't take say it was like a weaned size and a male breeder was like, no thanks this week. I wouldn't then offer it to a juvenile female.
Yeah, no, that's not what I'm saying. Within breeding groups, if you have people refuse, you can decide to refeed because they've already cross-contaminated each other by breeding.
Right. They've already had sexy time.
Right, and I definitely wouldn't feed ever down in age because that would be crazy.
Never feed down in age.
Yeah.
Groups.
But
Keep those groups separate.
But for my lives, I would take them away and then let them be rats for a couple weeks, and they're not infected with Nido, and they're not transferring it being a living rat. When they go clean their fur,
And the virus on their fur has been killed, is what you're saying.
So your rat isn't like if it's still alive.
But if it's dead and it's encountered that, you could give that. If it's
especially
Nido,
since when you
could give that to another snake.
When you tongue feed, you're just like sticking it up in their face, and it's halfway rubbing on the ground.
Oh, for sure, yeah, and
You know
you're
what I
dancing
mean?
it
Like,
around.
I just throw that shit out. I don't need that.
You're peeking it around the water dish.
Yeah, it's like walking, but a rat will walk on its feet, won't even be near the snake necessarily. It might jump over it or something, but then it'll go groom itself. So I don't know. If I can keep the rat alive for a while, I feel like the surfaces of the rat no longer have Nido on it. Nido is an envelope virus and is weak. Crypto.
Yeah, I would. Different.
So how can you kill Nido on surfaces or in the cage or whatever? So you can kill it with regular old ass soap. It actually works pretty good.
Dawn dish soap, hot soapy water should be your first step every time.
Right. Heat and or steam works great also because the envelope viruses are weak. F10 works great. The sun from above, the best. It's free and doesn't require any labor. So if you get a new cage and you're worried about disease contamination, put that shit in the sun for like half a day. You're fine. It's actually the most effective treatment for any contagious stuff. 10% bleach solution does great. Alcohol does great. Time, just straight up time. They cannot live on the surface indefinitely without a host. They're weak. Even if...
Yes. So if I get new equipment, it goes in my storage unit for 2 weeks, no matter what.
Perfect.
And then it gets a thorough, every step clean, hot soapy water. I do hot soapy water, alcohol, and then F10.
Right.
Or bleach solution right now because F10, you can't get it.
So when I do a bowl or something, it'll usually sit in the sink because I'm lazy and I don't get to my dishes fast enough. But after that, 2 weeks later, it'll be hand washed with soap and water. It'll completely air dry. And then it'll be F10'd. And then if it's going... It's just like one of those bowls that might have been in a boa cage, even though it's probably fine. I'll usually steam clean it to get the F10 residue out of the water bowl. You don't probably even need to do that many steps because these aren't that strong of a item. You do want to do more than just chlorhexidine. Chlorhexidine is an antibacterial. It has absolutely no effect on viruses, except for the mechanical effect of you rubbing it. That's it. So the amount of people are like, I chlorhexidine every time. Well, you're wasting your money. You don't need to do that. Chlorhexidine is more for smell.
Chlorhexidine's good for cleaning up poop and urine, but you need another step in there for disease.
Right. So I use chlorhexidine within the tub of the same animal to spot clean.
For spot clean. Yeah, that's what I use.
That's the only place that it exists. I don't want to smell bleach. I don't want them to smell bleach. So I'm not going to bleach their little spot.
Correct.
Gross.
Yes.
If I'm doing the whole tub and disassembling it, I usually will wash the particulates off and then do F10 and then put it back into rotation that way. But that's it. That's how you clean it. Also, quarantine your snakes. I'll say it again. The longer the better, but a really long quarantine doesn't necessarily a disease-free snake make. So there's a lot of people that have 2-year-old snakes that they're just now finding out that they have Nido. You could have quarantined it its whole 2 years. Doesn't matter. It's only the testing that reveals it because of asymptomatic. So the quarantine is just part of the process. It does not save you from lots of things. It saves you from lice.
What is your recommended quarantine procedure?
I don't know. What species are we on? Pythons?
Ball pythons.
Test on intake. If that test is negative, I will put them into quarantine for around 90 days, but the amount of days kind of doesn't matter. People say 90 days, but it's a fucking made up number because the incubation period is less if they're going to be symptomatic. If there's no symptoms of any kind of thing or they eat fine, I will not necessarily retest them before letting them enter general population. But that's because I have all those like cohort rules and cleaning procedures. So that's almost like an extra 2 years of quarantining until they go to breed if they're a female or whatever, right?
Right.
I think this is a question like, should I test once every 3 months, 3 times to confirm negative? That used to be like a rumor for Nido.
Okay.
Or a recommendation. I don't think that anymore because we've absolutely seen animals test 3 times negative, 3 months between each time, still be positive when they came out of the box on the other end because the stress of shipping triggered the virus to have a good time because the immune system was suppressed.
Right.
So,
you have told me that you should test any that you're suspicious of but have tested negative or have had an exposure in their lifetime and tested negative during high stress events like laying or being shipped.
Yeah, if within budget and worry about whatever, do that. The hard and fast, 90 days is a minimum. Fuck you. I don't know. That doesn't seem super clear to me that 90 days is magical or has some sort of property where like, yeah, the incubation period's done. They're super obviously, there's detectable viral particles in their saliva by 90 days. Is it? No? Maybe? Sometimes faster than that. So like, why 90 days? It should be every snake is an island until they start to breed, basically. So then, do they need to stay in quarantine if every snake's an island? Maybe. Maybe not. Up to it's your risk tolerance to me.
Yeah, they don't have mites. They don't have active symptoms. Their first one was negative, and your biohazard safety protocols are in place. I don't think they need to stay in for 90 days. If they're going into one of your active breeding pools, they should probably have a second test.
Yes.
So,
that's okay
but a juvenile,
just to like double check.
Yeah. So like I have a few that are out of a quarantine rack into the regular rack, have had a negative, have made it through at least 30 days, no mites, no respiratory. But before they get to breed females, I think I'd feel more comfortable if they had another test.
Good plan. And that's just to double check the first one wasn't a false negative, which
Correct.
We'll get into that. There's a question about that. But our prescriptions of what you should do should not be taken as, I don't know.
Read the information and make your own judgment on that.
Yeah. We
That's
definitely have
choice.
cases where snakes have been tested every month and are positive every month, and then they'll drop negative a month, and then they'll be positive again. Just because it just wasn't detectable that well that month for whatever reason. I've talked to people who have tested the same snake every week because they're just full of money. And it'll drop off and then come back and then drop off. And like the amount detectable, it is mostly the same, but there's a little bit of false negative rate. And so you're just double checking that with the second test. But I would hope that a juvenile who has a low probability of being infected anyway, a baby, and came from one person, hasn't gone to 10 shows, and didn't come from Craigslist. One is probably enough. And then if it ever has symptoms in the next 2.5 years, test it again. Boas is different though. Fuck Boas. This is Nido only in pythons. Boas.
Boas are going to get their own episode, so stay tuned. She's always going to be salty. Don't let her lie to you.
Fuck them. All right.
Why not test only when animals become symptomatic?
Sort of already belabored this, so I'll try to make it short. But because they can already spread before symptoms occur, because potentially the incubation period is quite long or the asymptomatic period is quite long, And because typhoid mares exist, who can live potentially indefinitely, but be very infectious to your other snakes. So those are all reasons to test.
Right. So my cautionary tale of my favorite snake, the snake that died didn't have symptoms until 24 hours before she died.
Isn't that crazy? It's so
And then
scary.
she went from fine to death. So by that point where you were telling me, hey, red flag, you should really get on top of your testing and your collection. By that point, I had already exposed 4 snakes. So it's too late by the time you see symptoms.
Right. And
unless you're taking it out of the box and it has symptoms.
Yeah.
But you're testing that animal anyway.
It does happen, but it doesn't happen as much. The reason to test early and often is so you could get a refund on an animal that's asymptomatic and the seller genuinely didn't know and is open to testing. That's one of the bigger reasons to test. Like, how do you ensure a clean collection? Testing from the beginning. So even though it seems like an undue burden, test at the time of the transaction.
Be kind to the other person, because testing is not expected to be industry standard. Even though we're working really hard to push it that direction, it's not. And so some people aren't educated. Some people are led to believe that it is a boogeyman story and it's not needed, and that only the Karens of the industry say they have to because we're haters and angry at everybody. So if you do have an animal that's come up positive, hopefully you have talked to the sellers prior to purchasing the animal and have an understanding that you are going to test, and if that animal comes back positive, you are going to return that animal to them in expectation of a full refund. So make sure you talk about that before you purchase the animal. And then if it's positive, be kind, be professional. It's probably just as traumatic, overwhelming, disgusting situation to them as it is to you. So just try to remember, be professional. Most people are not out selling Nido snakes knowledgeably. Like, most people are not that devious and going out of their way. It's usually sometimes they're disgusting people and they're not. But you should still, careful. On your own end, act professional, be understanding, be kind, but also be very direct in your expectations and what you expect the situation, how to play out.
Right. Especially, there's a lot of money at play. Feelings can get hurt. If you have a feeling about what you want the quality of your snakes to be and figure that out in advance, test quickly, sort it out. It can work out. You can have a collection eventually. You will get people to shut you down, but oh well, fuck
Ghost you.
Fuck them.
Yep.
You don't get my money, it's my money. Someone else gets it. Yeah.
Told me about how many people will ghost you when you're trying to drop 5K on a snake, and I believed you, but I also was like, oh, they just must not like her, but I'm fun and adorable and everyone loves me, so that's never gonna happen to me.
Oh, no.
I have this problem with that attitude. And over Black Friday, when I was on the hunt for a high dollar snake to be revealed in the future episodes, I got ghosted.
Isn't it crazy?
From several companies trying to drop 5K on a snake. They didn't want my money. They didn't want to talk to me. They didn't want to return my email. They didn't want to tell me to go away. They just wanted to ignore me and assume I was a Karen. Mm-hmm. And they would rather sell that snake to somebody who didn't want to test it.
Yep. And they also probably didn't want to put in writing that they didn't want to test it, because you would obviously have that information in like a written form and you could share. So ghosting is like the safest position for someone who is an anti-tester, because they don't have to admit to that yet publicly. It lacks fucking balls, so you're a little bitch. Just saying, ghosters. Like, the people are like, fuck you, I don't care, I'm not gonna do it. That's, I guess, has more balls. Like, at least I know.
Yeah, at least they were upfront about it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or like, hey, that's too much of a headache for me, no thanks. Like, yeah. That's fine.
That's people's prerogative. It's your animal. But
totally your business, your animal. I'm just not going to do business with you, but thank you for at least being professional.
Me. Yeah.
Ghosting,
ghosting is hard, because here's a question. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But if someone ghosted you and is on your blacklist now, and they wanted to buy a snake from you in 3 years because you're big ovaries Jana, big ovaries Jana, are you gonna be like, guess what, motherfucker? I remember when I was trying to come up and buy an animal and you treated me like shit. I don't know.
Oh.
Big ovaries Jana coming to town.
Big ovaries Jana coming to town. I would think about it first. I wouldn't just immediately sell to them. I would be like, I tend to try not to be like a petty
bitch.
No, like the person that like holds on a grudge, somebody that holds grudges. Like I try not to keep that on myself because I feel like that affects me more than it affects them. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how big of a petty bitch I am when I'm a big deal in a few years.
So a lot of people, and obviously like someone could change their mind in that 5 years about testing, and then you'd be like, oh, okay, they've come to Jesus and they figured out that having animals that aren't sick is good.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the concern that if you're making really high-end stuff and someone's buying it and you know that they're anti-testing, do you want your beautiful, hard work, high-end dollar snake going into their Nido collection?
Exactly. Or like, do you want to better their collection when they are not a proponent of correcting what's wrong with the hobby currently?
Correct. And I also, like, if they're going to sell their babies as phenomenal snakes that came from me, gosh, that seems like weird that one day that could happen.
Big ovaries.
You know, like people who are like, oh, my snake comes from JKR. Not saying that I'm ever going to be JKR, but do I want them to say that if they're Nido, like if their babies are going to get contaminated with Nido?
Do you?
What kind of control over association do you have as a seller?
Probably not that much. I think JKR said he has 10,000 people that has ever bought from him. Where the fuck are all of they? Most of them aren't even in the hobby anymore. But he obviously can't control much. He can just control the 1,500 babies he sells a year, and hopefully that's good. But yeah, I don't have the answer either. I'd be willing to accept a groveling apology from certain people, and other people I don't think I would, because they treated me so poorly. Like, my money was not worth shit, nor was my time, nor was their time. So it depends on how they responded. I try not to deal with those people in general. I don't think it would have to do with the fact that they wouldn't let me buy a snake. I think it would have to do with the fact that they lack professionalism and courtesy for other breeders. If somebody declined politely, changed their mind and wanted to buy from me later, okay. But the ones that have like ghosted me or like put me on red right away, like talked to me for a while and then left me on red and did not respond anymore. I've had that happen. Yeah, this was a $1,500 pair of Crebos, by the way. Left on red. Fuck you. Doesn't have anything to do with Nido. But yeah, it's the same kind of stuff. Like, I get it. Just be like, no, I'm not comfortable, whatever. Make up whatever dumb excuse you want. And I will still probably add you to my blacklist, but we could still have a relationship later. But you've definitely burned the bridge. For now. Yeah. If I see your name under a snake I want, I'm probably going to keep scrolling. Absolutely. And this is all a business about like word of mouth and perception. Remember that in your business dealings. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now this is the part that I think that my layperson brain and your master's degree, I struggle with the understanding of what this means. So I actually might have some questions after you go over this part. Is there vertical transmission of Nidovirus? Now, I know that the answer is there's no evidence, but I don't quite understand what vertical transmission means. Okay. Other than it means that the eggs don't get sick, right? Right. So there are diseases where a mommy and a daddy snake get together and they make babies of either egg or live-born variety, and the embryo is infected before it's even born or hatched. The virus migrates either across the ovary or across the placenta. There's no placenta in snakes, but it's like a placenta-like surface in their oviduct that's like vascularized and will infect the embryos before they're born. Nido doesn't seem to do that. It seems to just stay in the lungs and mouth for the most part and doesn't get into the ovary or reproductive tract. So the babies, when they emerge, do not have Nidovirus. There could be Nidovirus on the surface of the eggs that has now died because it's been 60 days, but it's not able to infect the babies.
So vertical transmission has nothing to do with a snake above another snake can get that snake sick.
You mean like physically in space?
Correct, because that's what I originally thought, is that a vertical transmission meant I can have a positive snake above a negative snake and they're fine.
Right. Don't think about it in terms of physically in space.
It has to do with generationally.
Yes. And so the other version is horizontal transfer. So animals of the same generation giving it to each other, which is the normal way things transfer.
So it does have that.
So like Zika virus would be, human babies. Zika virus would be vertical transmission.
Okay.
And AIDS would be horizontal because the baby gets it from the fluid of the birth canal, not because the AIDS crossed the placenta.
The placenta barrier.
But Zika will get into like the dudes, will hide out in their gonads and then travel with the sperm and infect preconception. And so the fetus is already infected at conception.
That's so horrible.
It's viruses fucking suck. I hate them all. I know we've been co-evolving for a long time, but fuck them. They're the worst. These little babies. Anyway.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. So, Nido cannot vertically transmit.
I think I've come to that understanding, but my original understanding as a layperson was really dumb. And I'm like, that just means that they can't transfer up and down. But that's not what it means.
Yeah, you're okay.
Okay.
Just think about it in terms of human babies. Because you probably already knew Zika and AIDS. You could protect a baby from AIDS by putting antivirals in their eyes really quick, right when they're born.
They do that anyway, usually.
Yeah. That's usually to prevent, like...
chlamydia.
Yeah, from, like, making them blind. But if you knew mom was HIV positive, and she's in remission, and so her viral count's real low... You can save her baby from being infected and still let her have a natural birth.
I didn't know that. That's really awesome. I thought they had to have a C-section, which isn't viable.
Sometimes they still opt to do that too. But
in like villages in Africa where AIDS is rampant, that's not always an option.
You could save that baby from a life of not great. I kind of already went over it, but just means like because there's no vertical transmission, you can protect your babies by not cross-contaminating, and you do not have to test them to sell them and be confident in their status. We've already been over like why you should protect them and how you can do that. But this is why it's important, because there's no vertical transmission. All those little baby ball pythons are fine. So big breeders that only buy little babies from each other, unless their collection's probably clean, because they only ever buy like $20,000 snakes that are, 3 months old.
Little, right.
Yeah, so that's why the big breeders are quote unquote safe, because they haven't needed to like buy a ton of adults from Craigslist recently that have most likely been infected.
I heard every snake is infected with Nidovirus. That means I don't have to worry about it, right?
There have been podcasts and people on the internet who have purported that, these are famous big name people too, that every snake, every python has a kind of Nidovirus. And all of them and all of them are infected somehow with all of them, and most of them are fine. And so you don't have to worry about it, because a little seasonal cold is fine. It's something you should tolerate and not worry about. There's truth to that statement and inaccuracies. There are hundreds of kinds of Nidovirus, like variants, where like a mutation has happened, just like with COVID, where you have like the Delta and the Omicron or whatever, and the Mu. Like there's just variants of the same species of, and then within all snake Serpentoviruses, there are multiple species of viruses. So the kind that likes to live in carpet pythons might actually be so divergent from the kind that lives in ball pythons because they haven't interacted in 100 million years. There are different variants within the species. So there's hundreds of kinds. Many snakes probably have a kind. But because there's no vertical transmission, not every snake is born with it automatically. Your assertion that every snake has it and they're all mostly fine is not correct. It just doesn't match with reality. So I'm not sure, maybe in your collection, because you cross-contaminated all of them, they all have it now.
Yeah, your
that's what you're actually saying.
Missing.
Yeah. So you shouldn't...
Everybody's been exposed here.
You shouldn't use it as an excuse not to test, because you believe they will all be positive. I've also heard people say, like, a positive qPCR from RAL is meaningless because they haven't sequenced the strain to determine exactly which variant it is of which species. And I'm like, do you need a sequence every time to like be culpable for the fact that you sent a nidopositive animal to someone? Like, it's possible that there are variants that do not cause any disease in any snake. They just infect the snake and they're fine. But usually you have a disease state when certain variants jump to other ones, or when they double up, when 2 or 3 variants are in the same snake and they're like tag teaming them. They don't all have it. So if we all just stopped fucking around right now, we would have all pythons and colubrids with no vertical transmission in a couple generations. We'd have no more nido, right? Let's stop fucking around. Even if it's like a benign version of it or something stupid. And B, we don't know how co-infection with other kinds of variants and of other kinds of viruses means to a snake. So the more testing we do, even if you don't want to call based on those results, is good. So you should still test, even if you think a positive doesn't reserve euthanasia.
But I've heard that there were lots of false positives and false negatives. So is it really worth my time and money and stress to test if there's lots of false?
To me, yes. So this is like a opinion. Some people are like, I don't care. My snakes are fine, but I'm not going to waste my time sort of sorting it out because I want to save every snake I can.
I don't want Freckles to have been
exposed. Oh, buddy.
Freckles.
Yeah, so like in a universe where you're like, I don't want to test, and I'm going to take 10% loss or something crazy of animals breeding stock. I'm going to isolate babies and I'm never going to test. And I'll have a new colony formed out of just my babies that never breeds back to the adults. Still don't want to test. You could do that and probably technically end up with a nido negative colony, no testing. But I like the animals I have. I would like to have as clean of a colony that's the primary one as possible. Seems like a no-brainer to test, even if there are false positives and false negatives. False positives basically don't exist because they would require amplification of DNA that isn't there. So
a positive is a positive, people. Okay? Yeah. That's the hot take from that.
Yeah. And a negative could be a negative because, like, you didn't swab good. It got exposed to too much heat or light on the way there. Maybe they just weren't shedding enough that day or when you did it. So that's why people encourage, and you've already touched on this, testing them at a time of duress so that their immune system is suppressed. And so you get a good, maybe representation of what's going on. But those can happen. So like you can't let a false negative dissuade you from testing. It's still part of your management strategy.
You touched on this a little bit, but should I euthanize all of my nido-positive animals? And will widespread testing cause unnecessary euthanasia within the community?
For some reason, this is like the number one retort to testing is that people are scared that people will euthanize animals unnecessarily. You've chosen not to run a nido-positive colony, and you've already talked about why, because the cross-contaminated risk is just too high to be worth it.
From a business standpoint.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you have to make business choices rather than like emotional, because my favorite snake is in my nido-positive colony. And also when I test all my snakes in the parking lot of FedEx and open the box in my car. And then my nido colony, like I said, is completely isolated from any contact in any way with any of my other snakes. But if you house a nido colony and you're expecting a money back guarantee for nido, you can also cast doubt on yourself from a business standpoint. And a lot of our community is reputation. And so I just don't think that it's worth the risk to my reputation, to my colony with like mites, or if my kid didn't know, like Freckles was the favorite snake in my home, and now my children are not allowed to interact with him at all. And so I do have a 3-year-old. If she decided wild Hare, I'm going to get Freckles out, and then she's like, oh cool, I'm going to put Freckles in and make some baby snakes because she knows all about that, then I've exposed a snake unnecessarily, which is tragic, and from a business standpoint is also not feasible. I do have him. His girlfriend, who he is breeding, was in that same breed group and was also exposed and positive. So he is in a rack with his girlfriend. They each have their own tub, obviously. And she is currently gravid. And so I think once she lays, they will both be euthanized. But all the other snakes that I have that pop up positive that do not get returned to the seller will be immediately euthanized. You can, for peace of mind, or if the seller is asking you to euthanize and just to double check, you can order a second test. Once I've had a positive, I've never had it not be positive. So I don't think that that is needed. And I think that maybe some snakes, I mean, there aren't false positives. So euthanizing, I don't think that that argument stands up, because if it says positive, they're positive, and they need to be euthanized to protect the industry. They need to be euthanized to protect your own collection. It sucks. It is upsetting emotionally. It can be upsetting to your business. If you bought it from somebody, it can be upsetting to them. Like, nobody wants to just kill snakes. It's not a fun thing to do. It's a lose-lose. But also, you don't want to be the person that's responsible for infecting other snakes. And so I think that it is the best choice for the hobby. I think it's the best choice for a person who owns a business. And I think it's the best choice for, on a personal, emotional level, I don't want to infect other snakes and have that same horrible feeling of culpability and guilt that I could have prevented that.
Mm-hmm. Cody and Pia Bartolini are like famous for having a Nido shed in their yard that has long-term, stable-ish pythons in it that were either infected or exposed. So that's, I think, where
that's sustainable.
That's where this idea comes from. And if people want to make a Nido shed, I think it could start being like FIV positive cats, where some homes have an FIV positive snake, but it's not FIV, it's Nido. And those definitely rare animals that appear not to have any symptoms and are not suffering, even though we know there's a certain amount of tissue damage through time, maybe they can go in the Nido shed for some amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do that, that's a personal choice, obviously. But and I've tried to be that person because, like I said, this is my favorite snake. He's my buddy. But I know from the little information that we have from necropsies that his lung tissue is deteriorating. So even though he's eating, even though he appears healthy, I can't enjoy him. I can't get him out and let him hang out with me. I can't
take pictures of him, put him on Instagram, or promote him as part of your brand or anything.
Right. I can't use him in any way, and he can't be my buddy. And like, I can't let him slither around on the ground and other things, because then I have to treat the ground as contaminated. And so it has actually become this huge emotional, psychological suck of like anxiety and guilt. And so I just don't recommend that. Like, you don't need an anxiety guilt soup sitting in a rack for you with an animal that could be suffering, we don't know, and an animal that is used to, they say snakes don't have feelings, and so maybe he doesn't care that I don't take him out. But he's the kind of animal that if you open his bin will immediately come out and slither up onto you. And so the fact that I have to be very careful and have gloves on and push him back into his bin, that's upsetting. And I think that it was very naive of me, because I don't plan on having a Nido shed. I have them in their own room, in their own rack, and they have all their own equipment. That gets very, like, I'm very safe about it, but it's an anxiety and a worry and a concern constantly, and I don't feel like the quality of life is very good. And so that's a personal choice for you and your business, whether you want to keep a Nido shed or not. I thought that I was going to have this happy, sunshiny type situation, and I even like daydreamed about, I could put him in a bioactive, so I only ever have to interact with his water once a week, and he's going to just live this great, happy life. That's not feasible either. And so it's like, I don't know. This is getting really dark and depressing, but I think that euthanizing upon receival of positives is a cleaner, better, more sustainable option for your collection as a whole, from your business as a whole, for your reputation as a whole, and for the industry.
Mm-hmm. I think, and the other thing that people are retorting is that the possibility exists that, like, there are 15 that are lethal or dangerous, but there's 20 that aren't lethal or dangerous at all if they're perfectly isolated. So, like, we don't officially know which variants aren't lethal at all. So you could have infected animals living together and never get disease state, and if they don't spread it to anybody else. So, like, that's part of what they're saying, like, I'm trying to prevent unnecessary euthanasia, but then you'd still have to have, like, a special colony for the ones that are infected with carpet python nidovirus number 72.
Correct, because if you have two different strains and you put two different strains in your same rack, I know obviously that my male infected my female from my typhoid Mary, so I know that they have the same strain. But a outside snake getting in there and interacting with that could be catastrophic.
Yes,
if they combine together.
Co-infection is probably part of what induces a disease state. If they're the kind that they already had to begin with, like that species. So if you gave a carpet ball python nidovirus and green tree python nidovirus, he'd probably, like, roll immediately because he's like, oh fuck, I'm not used to this. But if you gave him, like, the one that he co-evolved with, maybe he'd be okay. But you could never cross-contaminate any of those other ones or give him to it makes it very complicated to keep positives. But so yeah, maybe we are saying you should euthanize. I mean, Jana is.
I'm saying that, but I'm also saying that there is an option if you're willing to do that. But for me, trying to be that person and to do that has been detrimental to my own mental health and enjoyment of my colony and my business. It's a very negative. I'm not feeling like, oh, I've given him this better life or I've saved his life. We're both miserable.
Yeah.
Did I make the right choice? Was that worth it? Is that the right choice? I think no, but you're going to have to make that choice on your own of what you're going to do and what you're going to do for your business. But for me, trying to be the happy, ignorant, dare I say, it's going to be fine and beautiful and he's going to have a long life and I still love him. Yeah, I still love him. He's still my favorite snake, but I think it was an error in judgment on my part. But am I going to think that if his female snake, her name's Karen, by the way, has little freckles babies, am I going to be disappointed with that? No, I'm not. So hopefully a little piece of Freckles gets to live on, and then from that point forward, I will choose to unequivocally euthanize.
Good choice. I haven't actually been sent a Nido positive snake yet, so I haven't made the choice for Nido. I don't know.
I've been sent.
Probably euthanize them too, but we'll
I've been sent 2 positive snakes. One, the breeder asked me to euthanize, and I did. And one, they didn't believe me, even after 2 results. So I sent the snake back to them, and they took it to their vet and had their vet test it, although they did not disclose to me the results of that testing, but I did receive a refund. So if it's not your animal and they want the animal returned, I think that that's a fair option, but I've done it both ways.
You decide, is the moral of that story.
Do your research, make your own choices, kind of like everything else in life, but don't put others at risk. I heard Nido is like the common cold that you can get in winter.
Fuck no, it's not. What are you talking about? You're stupid. Come on,
wait, no, isn't it normal for my female to get a respiratory infection every winter? Right. Isn't that totally normal?
Oh, I get that because I
don't worry about it.
A human monkey, and I get a cold sometimes, so it must be the same. No, fuck, God, this is like the dumbest fucking shit I've ever heard.
I send my kid to school in September, and they always come home with a cold. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it. You probably don't even need to take them to the vet.
The better allegory here is
fine.
HIV. Your snake has
Correct.
HIV, is permanently infected. It can never clear the virus. It's not like, oh, I got a permanent damage, permanent ongoing infection. We have no evidence of it ever clearing, ever. If it did, send me a paper about it, because we don't have any evidence. So, no, it is not the same. No, you can't pass it off as the same. People do that, fuck them. You don't buy any snakes from them. They're not treating it with the seriousness that it deserves.
Yes, it is not a simple virus that you get a little cold and then you're fine and don't have to worry about it. Or the virus goes through your family every fall. It is forever. And they are infectious forever. I heard that other infectious diseases are worse for snakes than Nido. And since it's not as bad as those infections, I don't need to worry about it.
That's also
is that true?
Very weird logical jump where you're like, other things are worse, so I'll just stop worrying about anything. You should worry about everything together because you're trying to keep animals alive, right? So
I've heard the rationalization that because there's no vertical transmission, and if they do have good biohazard safeties in place and they have protected their hatchlings and juveniles by their procedures in place, then they're like, I don't need to worry about it.
I mean, if you then only kept your hatchlings together and bred them together and phased out your whatever, you're still when you upgrade males and females, selling nido-positive adults to people, being a fucking dick.
Yep.
And then B, those people who are convinced their cross-contamination techniques are great, are they? Are they, Jana? Those are the same people who use the same tub, and they're like, I quarantined for 30 days. That's a lot. That's like a whole lot. I didn't see one.
As knowledgeable as I am, and as much as I have an understanding of biohazard safety coming from a medical system background, I have lots of areas to improve. I have lots of situations where you could do something dumb, and then you're like, oh, crap. Why am I doing it this way? So I feel like even somebody with a lot of knowledge and information and knowing how you're supposed to do it can still mess up and do like, oh crap, I have mites. Let's put everybody in the same tub to soak them repeatedly over it. Yeah. There's only one in a tub at a time. You know, a year ago when I had mites, I did that. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah,
don't do that. You know, you have 4 tubs and they all got hot soapy water in it. And you're trying to kill the mites. And then you dump them out and do a quick, chlorhexidine, which we've talked about does not kill Nido. And then you refill them with water and you think, I've done a good job.
Have you done a good job?
Now I know better.
Right. And like I already said this, but practicing good techniques for Nido prevention saves you from the things that are rarer, but even worse, called arenavirus and sunshine virus. Among others.
Scare me so bad.
So they are more rare to just like pop into your ball python colony, but it is totally possible because unlike the rumors that like all ball pythons immediately roll once they get arena, some of them don't. Some of them live a long time. We have peer-reviewed literature for that. So, interesting,
because I had heard that rumor and believed it.
I mean, it is
that
true,
if you get arena, that your whole catastrophic.
I mean, that part's true, but they don't all do that. So you can typhoid Mary arena in a ball python. There's absolutely peer-reviewed evidence of how long it takes them to die and how long they persist. We know it's a long time. It's longer than 90 days sometimes. There's a retic living in Australia who's still infected with arena. He's like 25. He ain't dead, but he's probably infectious as fuck.
Okay. What about... It's way too expensive. I couldn't possibly pay for testing. I have 100 snakes.
Well, if you're getting a new snake and all of your snakes are high-end investments, you sure as fuck can pay for testing. If you can spend $5,000 or $2,000, $1,500, the cost of testing is a month's worth of rats or whatever for just Nido. And the cost of a panel is 2 months worth of rats. For a snake,
$25 or $60
Yeah,
on a 5K investment just for a little bit of insurance.
yeah.
Really, people, really, are you really pinching that many pennies if you're dropping 5K on a snake? You need to just start factoring in testing as part of your budget.
It's a tax deduction, boys and girls, because it's an expense of running your business.
Tax deduction. And it should also be figured into the budget of every snake you buy.
And to some extent, the snakes you sell. So if you have a bunch of adults, you're moving on, please consider testing them after the season because they've had lots of exposure events and you might have had something sneak in. This would be a good time to like both check you're selling good animals and check that nothing has persisted
snuck into your breeding.
Yeah, it's a great time to double check. If you literally have no money and 100 snakes, you're like, what do I do? I don't know how to start. This is too much to process. Obviously start with the most probable to have it to least probable and cohort isolate from there. So animals with symptoms would obviously be first. Animals that touched animals with symptoms or bred them or were near them. Then older males, older females, and males preferentially because they've touched more females than a female has touched. They've been exposed to more animals. And then juveniles, and then hatchlings in that order for ball pythons. The other candidates would be like animals that were like the touching animals at shows that touched, many people touched them and that snake was touching many other animals potentially. That would be a good candidate, especially if you don't insist on vigorous sanitization of hands. You just sort of let them do a little squirt, and then they just sort of.
We'll talk about that in next week's episode. But 12 bottles of sanitizer, sanitize before and after every animal. Is what you need to force people to do if they want to touch your animals. If you've chosen to let your animals be touched at shows.
Yeah,
a whole episode on that.
We'll do a show just in general next week for sure. It'll be fun because I haven't done a show Jana has. Jana's the expert, so.
Well, that never happens. I got one thing.
You got this, Jana.
Also on the methodology of testing when you are looking at 100 plus ball pythons, because I experienced that. Just to reiterate, what I did is I had a female die, so I tested her entire breed group, and then I tested the animal that I had purchased with her and that animal's breed group, and that was my first round of testing. And so that was about 10 animals. And then once I was moving on to round 2 of testing, I tested all of my males, and then I could see if those males were infected, if their breed group needed to be tested next. Luckily, it was contained within those 2 groups. Only about 50% were positive, and then the other 50% were negative and negative again at 90 days. So,
which is actually something we never brought up, is the good news that it's not so infectious that even sharing a tub isn't necessarily like an immediate death knell.
Correct. So every snake that was in those breed groups, the 2 snakes that I received together, both were positive, and I believe that that is where my Nido came from. But every snake that they interacted with, or that the male that they interacted with, they were not all positive within the breed groups. It was about 50-50. And so, and like I said, at 90 days, those were still negatives. And then I did the males, and then all of my males were negative from different breed groups, not the 2 males from those breed groups were positive, but all my other males were negative. And so then I could leisurely test each breed group in an affordable way. I would test 10 to 20 at a time until I made it through all my snakes.
Mm-hmm. You do definitely want to.
You do your high risk
check
first.
Everything eventually once you get there. If you you have an event happening.
Yes, yeah. But I did not test 100 snakes in one go.
Yeah,
I did groups of 10 and 20 over a 90-day period.
That's another reason why you should start testing from the beginning.
Because then you don't have to do that, and you don't have to drop $2,000 on testing and feel the burn a little. But I don't regret it I absolutely think that even though it was so scary and I drug my feet for as long, literally until a snake died, which we've talked about before this, then it's too late.
It's not funny. It's not funny.
It's not funny, but it is looking back. So like you've drug your feet till it's literally catastrophic and you can't ignore it. That's not great. But I understand that if you haven't taken the red pill and woken up, in your body outside the matrix, that you have some deniability. You can lie to yourself that, oh, everybody's fine. Like, you don't have to face the facts. And facing the facts, it was very hard. It was a very rough month. I had a lot of, holy crap, everything's going to die. And holy crap, my business is going to go under. And I've invested all this money. And I felt very out of control because I didn't institute it from the beginning. But it wasn't catastrophic, luckily for me. It was about 10% of my collection, which is huge. And a lot of it could have been just those 2 snakes. And if I had tested them on intake, then 50% of their breed groups wouldn't have had to be positive and euthanized. So
isn't that crazy to me that like everyone somehow independently discovers that this is a problem?
It shouldn't be that way, but it was. And if I hadn't have had you as my mentor, whispering in my ear every time you saw me, hey, you need to do this. Hey, you need to do this. Hey, you need to do this. Yeah. Oh, shit, you had a snake die? That's really crappy. Hey, red flag. Hey, dummy, you've arrived and have Nidovirus. Maybe you should figure it out now.
I just got triggered by everything you said to me.
I'm sorry. But
like,
that's how it happened.
I just
and you were so kind.
Another podcast where someone was like, "Oh, my Boas died," and they all had arena. Weird. I'm like, how many fucking times do we have to say? Like, people need to listen to this podcast. Don't listen to the other bullshit, but listen to this one and let it internalize in your heart that like, if you have living animals, you will have outbreaks. Which ones do you want to prevent? The ones you can't, or the ones
scary.
You can't?
Yes, it's expensive if you haven't done it up to this point and you have amassed a large collection. And yes, the news could be very bad, but it's better to know today than if I had continued to take those 6 snakes into season 2 of my breeding and we're still spreading around. So if you think 50% loss of every breeding group that male is in, I'm not okay with that. I don't want to continue to have that. And so I got really lucky and they were lower end breed groups. And so it wasn't a catastrophic loss to my business.
Accidentally bring an arena and
I didn't accidentally bring an arena. I got very, very lucky, but I don't regret being informed. I don't regret once all those 12 steps of grief and all those things happened. Now looking back, it has been such a comfort to me that I test upon receiving that I know at least an initial status of these animals prior to allowing them into my collection. And I know it's not a perfect system and there are false negatives, but at least I'm doing my best educated ability to prevent the spread of this disease.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me feel better about it.
God, and that's worth a lot right there. Like,
it really is worth a lot.
I wouldn't be in this fucking hobby if I didn't have testing to make me feel better about maybe preventing the catastrophic loss of my business snakes. Like, why the fuck would you be in this hobby? They could all die again like they did last time. Like, I had an arena virus. I guess I've said it in my story, but I had an arena virus explosion in Boas for my first collection, which caused a complete exit from the hobby. So how do we manage this time? Well, we use testing and good biohazard safety to, like, even if something sneaks in through the testing, you'll still catch it on, like, your retest or your quarantine, your internal biohazard procedures to not have a complete failure of the whole thing. That's just good business practice, frankly. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Like farmers, they get to have cool things like vaccines and stuff, but they still do it. They still keep their animals and manage them with biohazard safety. And I have to bleach my boots every time I go to a goat farm. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because you can spread. There are things that are chronic diseases in goats that you can test for, but they're not super detectable, but they can travel through soil and like get in the soil of the next farm. So you actually do like bleach baths for your boots going between farms so that you do not contaminate their soil. Which,
that's awesome.
Whoa, we've been doing it in goats for 40 fucking years. Crazy idea.
Yeah, why
oh
can't we
God.
get on board? So if you're coming into this episode and you're on the fence and you've never tested your collection, what I'm saying is what you're going to put yourself through financially and emotionally in the next 90 days. I'm on the other side of that a good 3 months. So I think I'm 6 months into being a tester.
You've joined the Test Fest family.
Test Fest family.
That's what I call the Discord.
I have zero regrets other than I didn't do it sooner. So don't be me.
The only test I ever regret is the one I didn't do, or the one.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have zero regret spending that money. I have zero regret having that information once I processed it and emotionally dealt with the stages of grief. But looking back, the only thing I would change is I wish that the first time I was like, yeah, testing seems smart, I should do that, that I would have completely followed through and started immediately then.
Yeah, there's so many people are like, you're right, like on the cusp. They're like, sounds like a good idea. And those are the people who will sell to you with like a testing guarantee.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're open to it.
But they like haven't like triggered enough. We need to trigger all those fuckers. All you guys. Trigger you, trigger you, trigger you. Go ahead and get
off and do 10, please. Yeah,
or even 5.
Do 10 males. Do 5 males.
Yeah, anything. Just see what happens. You'll see that it's like, doesn't hurt the snake. It didn't hurt you. It did cost money. But then you get like 5 little relief nuggets in your brain.
Right.
Or maybe 1 sadness nugget. I don't know.
Or 1 sadness nugget that you can follow.
Right.
Down a path.
Sort it out instead of having
sort it out.
Schrodinger's collection for the rest of your life, where you have no idea.
Yeah. No, absolutely zero regrets other than I waited too long, and I wish that I would have gone into the hobby testing instead of waiting a whole year. I'm lucky. I was only in it a year when I started testing. It could have been catastrophic if I had had multiple seasons and bred, because I had a couple females. I have females that I plan to have in different projects. Mm-hmm. And so those females better be multiple test clean. So this season, when those females that I plan to switch projects for next season lay their eggs and they have a stressed event and their immune system lowers when they lay eggs, that's a great time to test, just to follow up, just to make sure, hey, you're still good to go for next season. And I have so much, it's so much more reassuring. It's so much more freeing, an alleviation of stress for me to see those negatives and to know that I'm doing what I can to protect my animals and to protect my collection and to protect my projects and to protect my business and my emotional connection with these animals. And that's a job in this industry that isn't being stressed, that it's our job to protect. They aren't born with it. There is no vertical transmission. If an animal is positive, a human error has happened somewhere. Mm-hmm. We are culpable.
Mm-hmm. And to conclude, there's no vaccine. There will probably never be a vaccine because it's not an expensive enough hobby, and there's no treatment, and there's no cure. The treatments are just, they have a secondary infection of bacteria, so I'll give them antibiotics to let them feel better, but they're never going to get better. So all of this that we've talked about for near on 4 hours,
Jesus,
new high score. It's important to do. If you don't agree, good for you. But I have seen just in the last 2 years the trajectory of the hobby moving forward, protesting across the board, across multiple species for multiple diseases. Yes, it's cheap, and so people can do it and not understand what they're testing, like not understand what it means. That's why.
Yeah, I don't understand all the PCR, all that stuff that you were saying. I glazed over a little bit, and it's above my educational understanding. But that doesn't mean that I can't participate in testing.
Right. And it doesn't mean that...
And understand the basics and to use it to my best ability.
Your biohazard safety management technique can include testing, even though you do not have a full, complete understanding of whatever.
How that all works. Correct.
Yeah. A lot of people are like, we don't know enough about all the variants, blah, blah, blah. And so, like, I'm like, 80-20 rule applies here, motherfucker. Like, if we know 80%, it's deadly this many percent of the time, it's asymptomatic this percent of the time, that's enough information. I don't need a full fucking 6 years from now analysis on exactly how many die to know that some of them die and we can stop it. No brainer. 80-20 rule. Use it when you need it.
Yep. I don't have to understand exactly how it's transmitted and how the panels of testing work and the variants. I have a very, very rudimentary understanding of any of that.
And you watched a snake die, so like you know.
I literally held a snake while it died.
Yeah,
and it was the snake that my child had named after her best girlfriend.
Oh no! No more personal names.
No more personal names. It was very traumatic, and not only that, she was in the breed group with my favorite snake. Yeah. So he is now also infected. Don't be me. Be smart. The only regret you'll have is that you didn't start sooner. So if you're on the fence, start with 5. That's not even the cost of a good snake. That's not even the cost sometimes of shipping. So like, start with 5. You can do it. I promise you will not be like, oh, I regret testing. I regret knowing. That's not going to be a regret you have. You're going to be like, dang it. Why was I not being more responsible before?
Mm-hmm. Well,
do it. You got it. You can do this. If you need information, there's a Discord. There is, I'm on Instagram, ASM Royal Tails. You can slide into my DMs and I can help you.
You can slide into my DMs too. This week. Hare Hall.
This week only.
We had a good week a couple weeks ago. And then not. And then, no, I actually go out of my way to find people who are like, my snake fucking died. And I'm like, hey, this will save the rest of your snakes. And then 80% of the time, they're like, fuck you. Whatever, they don't respond to my messages. But if you're ready to start, here we are.
And we can set you up with Chad at Rao Labs. If you have a large collection, you can call him and he can talk to you about the cost of testing and all those other things if you need to. He's really friendly and nice. I've talked to him before. Great guy. Doing great things for this industry. But we can point you in all the right directions. We can hold your hand. Please test. Know your status. Don't spread Nido. It's 100% preventable. We, as an industry, could eliminate it in a year if we wanted to.
Mic drop. We'll see you next week for vendor and buyer tips for a reptile show.
Pre-reptile show. If you don't know, we are both vending Pacific Northwest Reptile Show in Puyallup, Washington. So if you're a huge fan listening to our podcast and want to meet us in person,
we'll be there.
We'll be there for our whole one corner. Listener.
All right. I'll see you later.
All right.
Bye. Bye.